We're at that point of the year again, aren't we? More than halfway through the year. But last year when I did this, we always kind of before the summer session, before we break up, we kind of have a look back at the first 6 months. We decide what whiskies have brought us something interesting, something good, something decent. I'm just having to check something quickly here, apologies. And, what can we celebrate? What can we look back and say, "Wow, that was a good whiskey. That was" and it doesn't need to be something that was launched in early 2024, just something that we've discovered, either something that I've discovered and I can share it with you and get excited about it, or something that you've discovered and you can share with all of us. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you tonight. I've got a bunch of great, great whiskies around me right now. Looking forward to it, and I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. I'm going to start off with a wee bit of a confession. Almost never happened this week. For various reasons, it's been a very, very weird one. It's very rare. I think only once in the history of the 7 odd years of the vPub have we ever had a cancellation or a postponement. But it almost happened this week. But we're good. Everything was sorted. I was feeling in much better health earlier today and decided that we'd go ahead. Everything was good. And then the internet collapsed on me this evening, literally this evening. And no amount of rebooting and fiddling around could fix it. And then literally 10 minutes before we went live, everything just fired up again. So if things are a wee bit weird tonight, or a bit glitchy, I don't know if it's the wind. We don't have a storm, but it's a wee bit windy outside. I don't know if that's caused any issues. I don't know. But it seems to be okay just now. I hope it's okay at your side. It's okay at my side. I thought that I was going to have to connect up to my phone network and put out an announcement to everyone to say that it wasn't happening, but it is happening. We've made it happen. Yes, we're beyond the half point of the year. This year has been much different to last year. Last year, I found it hard to get motivated for this halfway point session to look back on the best of the year so far. Consider if I did it once a year, if I waited till the end of the year to do this. The vPubs are already running for 2 3/4 hours just now, 3 hours sometimes for these kind of sessions. So you can imagine if I left everything to the end of the year, I think it makes sense to kind of break it up into 6-month chunks. I hope you're okay with that. But I did this session last year and I wasn't really motivated. Maybe that was much more to do with me, but I think it certainly had something to do with the whiskies or the kind of lack of really quite engaging whiskies that I'd experienced in the first half of the year. You might remember that last year I got involved with you guys. You helped me out a little bit with a lot of suggestions from your side, and we ended up putting together not a bad wee session. You seemed to enjoy it anyway. This year, I feel has been a wee bit easier in terms of picking whiskies. And in fact, there are whiskies that are sitting on the shelf that I'm not going to speak about tonight that I feel probably deserve a wee bit of airtime. Maybe whiskies that you've seen before on the vPub in the 6 months. I think there's very, very little bottles here that I've not shared with you at some point earlier already. There are 1 or 2. But there are other ones that I've just had to leave on the shelf. And there's no real reason for it other than I'll probably find other topics to weave them back into the discussion going forward later in the year. So I get to talk about them again. But also what I've tried to do with the ones I've got in front of me tonight is kind of break them up into some kind of categories so that they make sense to me so that I can help them. I don't ever script the vPubs, but I've got a loose idea of what I want to speak about, right? So I've kind of gone through various kind of blocks, various topic themed blocks, and I'll use the bottles from the first half of this year to share that with you tonight. Anyway, that's what we're going to get on with. This is the first dram that I've had since Sunday. I went to a fantastic tasting in Edinburgh on Sunday at the brand new pub, a brand new whiskey bar in Edinburgh called the Belfry, hosted by Rory Dalgetty and his team over there, a break-even tasting. It was fantastic. There was a bunch of barflies that were there as well. made it even better. It was a great, great day. It wasn't a particularly late night. We had to come back on the train, Sevy and I, quite early from Edinburgh, relatively speaking early. But it was a fantastic day out. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, I've used just to take a wee break from whiskey, which means that this wee dram in the glass tonight is tasting fantastic. It's great to welcome you all. Cheers. And I should mention at the outset, it's an election day. It's a weird day in the UK. It's our national or general election day. I hope everyone's been out and voted. You've still got time. Get out and vote. I think you've got time, or the polls are closing in a couple of minutes now, maybe. I've been out and voted today. But also, it's American Independence Day. It's 4th of July. So I see that Brian is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 52 months with a JW green in his glass. Easy to find. It's one of his favourites for the year, it looks like. But Brian, to you and everybody else over that side of the water, happy Independence Day, if that's a thing that you say. Cheers. All right, before we get cracking, I can see that there's a lot of orange in the chat already. It's time to jump into the lounge and do what we like to do while you're all getting settled, to welcome you in as you're grabbing your bar stool, grabbing your drams, whatever you're pouring tonight, putting your feet up, whatever it may be, whether you're joining us live or on the replay, welcome. It's great to have you. Let's jump in and see how all of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies are doing tonight. I'm looking for the orange as always. So if you're trying to get my attention, just type Aquaviti or at Aquaviti and I should pick it up. So scroll back a wee bit and find my pal Ebhead from Norway. Good to see you in, buddy. Also Mirko as well from Germany saying good evening, Roy. Hope you're feeling better now. I'm feeling okay, Mirko. Thank you very much. I hope I'm looking okay too. I'm feeling fine. Thank you, buddy. And Gav Strams is saying hello, Roy. Great tasting on Sunday. Hope you got home okay. Save and I did. We got home in plenty of time. He managed to get his onward transport down from Glasgow Queen Street and we left each other at the train station. It was a great, great day, Gav, and I hope it's not the last time. I hope to see you again soon. Gav is starting an Edinburgh Whisky Club, and he's been working with people over there, Rory Dalgetty at the Belfry and various other ideas about how to kick things off for a general, inclusive Edinburgh Whisky Club. So if anybody's interested in getting together with Gav to participate, to help him organise, whatever it may be, you can either speak to Gav directly in the chat tonight, you can come through me, message me, and I'll put you in touch. Or if you're otherwise in touch with Gav on social media, he'd be grateful to hear from you. That same thing goes for anyone, anywhere who's thinking, oh, that's a good idea, a whisky club, that'd be good fun. If you don't have one in your local area, I'll help you build it. It might be you're quite remote, of course, but if you've got people around you, there's a good chance that maybe now and again they tune in, and it only takes two people. It only takes one person actually to take the action to come up with the idea and do it, but a couple of people and you've got a club. That's all it takes, and I'm happy to help build clubs wherever you may be. Great to have you in, Gav, and brilliant to spend time with you on Sunday too. Mike Molasses is here saying good evening, Roy. Glad you and internet are feeling better. Aye. The internet I can't speak for. I'm just hopeful that it holds up. I've got a wee window here monitoring it. It seems to be okay. Whiskey 101 Nick is saying evening, Roy. Glad all is good with you. Good to have you, Nick. It is. And Justin Wan is saying hopefully you're feeling better. I'm going to get a lot of these. I'm absolutely fine, guys. Thank you all so much for looking out for me. And I was fine. I just felt like I was going to come down with a virus, and then just when it started to get quite annoying, it just started to a good sleep cures a lot of things, right? Let's put it that way. Island Hopper Stuart is here. Stuart, good to see you. Saying good evening, Roy. It's nice to always welcome you in, buddy. You've been here for a while, and it's nice to welcome you into vPub tonight. Carlos San Diego too. Good to see you, Carlos. He's saying you deserve a drink. Great whiskey after some of these recent vPubs. Thank you very, very much, Carlos. There's going to be some nice whiskey poured tonight. I'm looking forward to this one. And Dorpass Whiskey is saying best bottle I've opened this year is Bruichladdich 18. Opened lots of great bottles before January 1st. Aquaviti. Okay. There might be an opportunity for us to share a wee story on the Bruichladdich 18, Tim. So I hope you're here a wee bit later. Gino Camoy saying, evening, Roy. You look fabulous, my friend. Hope you're feeling better. I am, Gino. Thank you very much for the compliment. I am feeling good. Jonathan Flowers is here. Happy 4th from Alabama. Jonathan, I hope you and the other half are doing very well, my friend. It's great to see your face and your name in here. Good to have you, buddy. Clydeside saying, good evening, Roy. have a pour of the lovely 1770 Manthania single cask in a glass, and looking forward to tonight. Again, something that you might hear spoken about very, very soon. It's good to welcome you in, buddy. Scroll down a wee bit looking for the orange. Petehead Frank, my pal from the Netherlands, is saying, evening, Roy. Great. The internet decided there is something more interesting than the elections. Looking forward to the vPub as always. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the general election here, buddy. And David Hong has bought me a dram, a very generous dram, to say, hope all is well with you and the family. Happy Independence Day to all my fellow Americans. The best of 2024 for me is discovering tequila. Sorry about the off topic. No need to apologise in here, David. It's wonderful to have you in. It's wonderful to have you buying me a wee dram as well. And if that's a glass of tequila and you still enjoy hanging out in the vPub with it, then you're more than welcome. Cheers, buddy. Thank you for the dram. I've got a tequila down there, a bit of cheap one, a generic one, a couple of nice mezcals though that have been gifted to me. Whiskey Weekend Dram Harrow saying, evening, Roy. Glad you made it. I did make it. Just made it. Skin of our teeth tonight, buddy. And Whiskey Games Matt is saying, I cannot stay late as picking a car for a trip to Orkney. Oh, wow. Fantastic. Starting early tomorrow morning. Sadly, Highland Park is closed, so I'll be heading to Scapa Distillery instead. They'll look after you there in the new VIP area. That's terrific, Matt. I have never been to Orkney or Shetland. Orkney is calling. I think we need to make a trip, don't we? Highland Hamish is saying, greetings from Inverness. Waiting to pick up my wife from election duties and heading home ASAP for a dram. Drive carefully. Say thank you to your wife for her volunteer service for the election today. She deserves probably a wee dram with you, Hamish. And let us know when you get settled, buddy. Fantastic. Prescription Bourbon is here. That looks like a new name. Cheers, Roy and Aquavite. Ben, Demon Hunter, Dornpass Whiskey and Dolly saying hello to everybody. It's nice to welcome you in. Prescription Bourbon. I'm pretty sure that's a new name. Lee J is here. Whiskey Liberation Front saying, good evening, Roy. Glad you're feeling much better, mate. SMWS, 11-year-old Glen Lossy in the glass tonight, and cheers. And Zach Chaston is saying, greetings, Aquavite and Barflies. I get to finally attend another vPub live. Zach, it's been a wee while since I've welcomed you in, but it's nice to have you here along with my pal Lee J, Whiskey Liberation Front. Ebhead Rawfay is saying, good evening. Good to have you, buddy. Alan Smith, Rob Smith, Gene Kelly. Fantastic to see you all. Max Crichton in Austria. Rule, I always say Rule. Orange Rule. Wonderful to have you in, buddy. Just as the chat jumps, there was a Petehead comment there. It looks like it was quite a way back up. I need to keep up with the chat a wee bit better. Kilco O'Brien is saying, I don't even know what people say for the 4th. Very loud holiday. H. Taylor bourbon in my glass to celebrate. I hope that goes along with the fireworks very nicely, Brian. And Ben Whiskey with Molly is saying, it's okay, Aquavite. I soaked up all the COVID in the room on Sunday's tasting to protect you all. I wonder if it was a wee bit of that, just a wee type, like a micro dose of it or something. I hope that you are back on the mend, Ben. I know that you ended up feeling poorly after the weekend. It would be a shame if that hung around for a wee while, buddy. Surprised to have you in the vPub tonight, but it's always great to have you here. And I hope you've perked up and feeling better. Cheers, Ben. And where's Roy? Is in tonight, also from Norway. Alistair Gray here. Good evening, Roy, from a very wet turf. It's very wet here too. It's been horrible, horrible July. It really has been. Just so changeable, so windy. Jonathan Mace, good to see you, Jonathan. Greetings, Aquavite. Thanks to the US holiday, I'm able to catch you live. A rare treat, of course, with the 4th of July thing, you're able to tune in live. Danny Heaventon is saying, evening, Roy. I'll give another vote to the 1770 Manthania. Listen, there's going to be a lot of people voting on other things other than whiskey tonight because it's just a general election. So I imagine that people are going to be, it's quite a thing in the UK. People do all-nighters and things. They stay up and they've slept in the afternoon so they can stay up through the night and watch the election results roll in and things. So I imagine that that's part of the plans for everybody's Thursday through the weekend. But if you're here, if you're joining us live with a wee dram, then I welcome you and we're looking forward to sharing some nice ones with you. Okay. There's a couple of topics I've picked with an endeavour, a genuine endeavour, to try as much as I can to go through the whiskies that I'm enjoying in 2024 without toiling the price discussion too much. But it's so hard. It's so difficult. It's like, oh, that's great, but, or Oh, that's fantastic. I'm really excited for that. How much is it? Oh, okay, I'm not excited anymore. It's just, it kind of, I think that for the majority of the people that join me in this journey on the Aquavitae channel and the vPubs and things, there are very few of us that are able to just kind of buy whatever we like and not really care about it too much. I think we have always been kind of mindful of the cost of this hobby. I think it's okay to call it a hobby, this pursuit, let's say. As time has gone on, it's become more and more difficult, despite the fact that we've seen some changes in the last 6 to 9 months. Some producers, some companies really trying to make an effort to bring us some really interesting, well-priced whiskies. I want to talk a wee bit about that tonight, definitely. That's easy to talk about because it's positive. But there are other producers out there that seem to just have arbitrary pricing policy. It seems to be anything that's limited or special, marking an occasion, or with a mature age statement. It's just got a random price added to it that is inevitably higher than anyone expected or hoped that it would be. So throughout tonight, the topics and the blocks of discussion that I've picked for tonight is to try and stay away from that as much as possible. But it will weave into the discussion, and I think it has to. And if I manage to go through tonight and less than 5% of the topics tonight are based on price, I think that's okay, given how much of an issue it is for us all. Dean Jod is in, saying Murray McDavid, Cask Craft, Aquavitae. Dean, I happen to know that you're responsible. You work for ACO, don't you? So you're responsible for that product line. I hope you've picked up in the course of the last 6 or so months that there's been a couple of moments where I've had the opportunity to talk about the 44.5% Cask Craft, very much from a price perspective. It's fantastic that we can find things. Some of them are under £30, but between 28 and £40, that Cask Craft series. The single malts switch up each time, but the flavour profiles tend to stay pretty rigid, it seems, and it gives people another choice on the shelf. It's good to see it. It's good to see you make an effort. I would have just so loved to have seen it at 46. I know it might have cost £1 or £2 extra, and I know I shouldn't be. I've celebrated it. I have celebrated it. Dorpass Whisky is saying for my 4th of July dram was a Deanston 2008 9-year Bordeaux red wine cask, full maturation, cask strength out of all of those bottles, but that red dram was fantastic. Wow, Tim. Full maturation and Bordeaux red. It's kind of funny, isn't it? There's been a couple of full maturation wine whiskies that I've enjoyed, despite the fact that I don't often like wine cask finished whiskey. I wonder if it makes a difference if it's full maturation. I wonder if it's different from a finish. I wonder how long a finish needs to be for it to really start to work. But that sounds like a cracker, Tim, not one that I've tried. Luna Aaron says, hello and good evening, Barflies. And hello, Mr. Aquavitae Roy. Good to see you, Luna. Always great to welcome you in. And Petehead is here. Earlier comment, let's raise an IB to memorise the 4th of July. Aye, absolutely. An IB, an independent bottling for an Independence Day. Is that what we're talking about, Frank? I don't have an independent bottling in the glass, but I have an independent company. Will that do? Cheers to you, Frank, and cheers to the 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. All right, let's get on. We talk about the first thing. Like I say, this year has been a good year, an enjoyable year for me. And much like you might measure how much you're enjoying something by the level in the bottle, you can talk about it, you can articulate it, you can make notes, and you can even give yourself a wee personal score, or you can pull it to a point in the cabinet where it's easy and accessible. Or if you're really loving it, you might want to push it further back in the cabinet, right? Anyway, the level in the bottle tends to betray how much you're actually enjoying something. Another thing I use to measure how much I'm enjoying something is that concept of the permashelf. If it's something that disappears and you immediately want to replace it, that becomes a permashelf item, something that you always want to keep around. And if something's in your kind of mental, or maybe some of you write it down, permashelf list, that betrays something that you're really loving. What about if we take it even more extreme than that? What about if we talk about something that when you start to see the level drop, you immediately are compelled to go out and buy a backup before you're even close to beyond the shoulder of the bottle? Don't tell me that I'm the only one that does it. If there's good whiskey, it's good for a reason, and you are excited about the whiskey and the reason, and you want to share it. And that's happened to me this year. So I'm going to start off the discussions tonight by talking about the bottles that I have purchased most in the start of 2024. It's a bottle that I've bought and enjoyed, and I've ran back and bought more of it. It's not in the glass right now. This is the first bottle. I'll get to this a wee bit later in the stream. But it's a nice and light and fruity one for me to open up and welcome all of you in. But I've got a glass here for bottles that I have opened multiple of, or I have purchased multiple of. This is a surprise to me because a lot of whiskies that I'll share with you tonight could end up being tricky to get a hold of now. They were around for a while and have kind of disappeared. And I was pretty confident that that was the case here. So I think I kept this window open because I checked that there was still stock of this available. Let's do a wee refresh. Aye, this is still in stock, and that's amazing to me because I'm about to share with you a limited edition release. Only 600 bottles of this was released, but it is available still today after being out for quite a few weeks, and it is wonderful whiskey. More than being wonderful whiskey, it is amazing presentation, amazing specs, and even amazinger value. Talking about an 8-year-old cask strength, very, very small batch, 600 bottle only, distillery limited edition, fully matured in, I think it's first fill bourbon. I'm looking for the specs. Small batch bottling, it says. I'm sure it says a cask. If it's not first fill, it's a mix of first fill and refill. And the ABV is 59.1% ABV. This is the second bottle that I've been through of this. If I'm in the mood for something that's bright and fresh and fizzy and alive, 59.1% I said, didn't I? And I don't feel the need to add water to it. But if I'm sitting in a comfy spot where I can take along a wee water dropper or a water jug and put a wee tiny drop of water in it as well, it holds it very, very well. This is fantastic whiskey, and it's £57. This is Loch Lomond's Distillery Edition 5. It just so happens that this one is, I think it's 5, I'm sure, yes, 5 I picked. This one is using Chardonnay yeast, or at least a proportion of Chardonnay yeast. And the subtitle to this one is Orchard and Vineyard. So obviously on the very, very fruity theme is from the Straight Neck Stills, which tends to produce a very fruity style spirit. And just, it says Orchard and Vineyard, but that's just maybe a wee splash of water I put in it there. Just brought a big, fresh, zesty blast of citrus. Clean, fresh, sweet orange. It's Loch Lomond, so I'm always looking for my grapefruit note. It's there. Sweet grapefruit. But also a sweet pear. A white pepper note, a nice gentle spice. A white pepper, maybe a kind of a light ginger. But immediately an enticing, light, summery, fully flavoured whiskey. Cheers. Cracking mouthfeel. That high ABV obviously helps, but I've put a wee drop of water in this one. Just a really, really creamy arrival, which is kind of almost a wee bit at odds with that kind of fresh, zesty fruitiness. Chardonnay yeast releases for me in the past, I've always had this wee spike of effervescence, which is there, but the arrival is always quite viscous and oily. cracking whiskey. I'll also say quite unique whiskey. And as long as they keep bringing us very, very limited, very, very small outturn experimental releases at these price points, somebody has to be shouting about that. Every single one of the Loch Lomond Distillery Edition exclusives has been a cracking price. If it's good whiskey and good value, says Greg in Paris, good to see Greg, and affordable, aquavite, I call it, it's a case of 6 buy whiskey, even if I can't do that most of the time. That's right, why buy a bottle when you can buy a case? Overaccumulation becomes part of it. There's so much whiskey out there, right, that we have to be careful, but there are ones that we fall in love with, and I think we need to forgive ourselves for buying duplicates or backups to the things that we're really loving. Whiskey helps us remember what it is to be alive. Let's be honest. Clydeside, you're definitely not alone in that. Both Coquerin 12 as well as my first Campbelltown Loch were bottles where I had my first dram and immediately turned around to buy a backup. Exactly what I'm talking about, Clydeside. Jean Kelly is saying my most purchased 2024 has been McLean's Nose. $29 here. So glad that it's everywhere in the States now, Jean. I'm glad that people are getting their head around it. $29 has got to be fantastic value. 70% malt in that wee mix, that wee blend as well. Fantastic. Inverurie Whiskey Shop, good to see you in. Hope everyone is well. Happy Independence Day. Got an indie bottle of Duncan Taylor Octave Cold Rain in my glass right now. And IWS exclusive guesses for the distillery is welcome. So it's one of these kind of hidden or alternately named distillery releases. Good to have you in, buddy. I hope you're doing well. Alan Smith is saying, bit tired. Going to watch from the sofa. Good night, barflies. So I guess, I don't know if you're going to watch this or you're going to watch the election, Alan. I imagine you're going to watch this, but not really engage in the chat tonight, and that's okay. Go chill out on the sofa with the majority. No pun intended. Jimmy Like is saying, I only have multiple bottles of PC10, Craigellachie 13, Clynelish 14, Ardbeg Udall, Springbank 10, Coquerin 12, Coquerin 8-year-old cast strength bourbon. I only have multiple purchases. So we've all got our favourites that we do it with, right? Even Jimmy. Hellswood is saying, all gone, more's the pity, aquavite. Okay, so wait a minute. The Loch Lomans have all gone? Surely not. Okay. There was definitely stock before I went live tonight, Helen. That would be a shame. I'm pretty sure not. Maybe that's not what you're speaking about. Jed Fairtax? Jed Fairtax, maybe? Jed, I'm so sorry. I'm making a right mess of your name. First time entering the chat. Really enjoy your channel and the knowledge you share. So thank you, Jed. Thank you for your very kind words. It's nice to have been able to recognise that it's your first time in the chat and been able to welcome you here. And I'll apologise right now. The mess I've made of your surname. If you do spell it out phonetically, I'll try my very best to catch it there. Jed, Faircats. Cax. Sorry, buddy. Yes, lots of difficult challenging names from time to time. Fortunately, this wee dram is not challenging. I'm going to put it off to the side. I'm going to do a wee uncorking. And it's not the first time I've uncorked a bottle of this in the vPub. Isn't even the first time I've uncorked a bottle of it in 2024 on the vPub. This has been I don't know how to describe it other than an eye-opening, surprising to the point of being shocking whiskey. When you discover something like this, I think it's nice to carry it into an environment where you can share it with other people and kind of get either people backing you up and saying, I get what you're coming from, I really enjoy this is fantastic, or to kind of sanity check you and say, yeah, I mean, it's, it's nice to gauge it. What was nice about this one is that absolutely everybody that tasted this seemed to be just about as surprised as I was. I'm going to present you with a smorgasbord of Scotch whiskey tonight. Heavily focused towards Scotch. There's one bottle that's coming out tomorrow that I wish could have been in the lineup tonight, but it's not coming out till tomorrow. It would have been an English whiskey. White Peaks Bourbon Cask comes out tomorrow. That would have been a fun thing to uncork. But it's coming along tomorrow. We need to wait for that. But in front of me here is another English whiskey that has really surprised me in 2024. It's a Thompson Brothers bottling. But I've also picked up since some bottles, official bottles, straight from this producer. This is single grain English whiskey, distilled at a very, very small distillery in Bristol called Circumstance Distillery. I don't know what they're doing here. This is a 3-year-old product. This is single grain. Obviously, it's produced all at Circumstance, and it's not all malted barley. It might even tell us on here what it is. This whiskey used a mixture of traditional and modern methods, including sourcing heritage barley varieties, fermenting with local brewers' yeasts, embracing and harnessing natural seasonal variation to create flavour-packed spirits. I think maybe that's talking about this. Circumstance whiskey has been created with 85% distilling malt and 15% raw barley. A clear wort was fermented using a saison yeast for a 10 to 14 day, wow, long fermentation, during the summer before distillation in a steel pot with a copper head, neck and 4-plate copper column. After a careful 11-hour distillation, the spirit was slowly diluted to 63.5% and was filled into an ex-bourbon cask for maturation. Nothing there. It's intriguing, but nothing would make you go, ooh, well. This is bottle number 4 that I've uncorked. The first one was opened on the vPub, loved it, went very, very quickly. Now, okay, it might be 3 because that might be that one that I took to Limburg. Regardless, I took one to Limburg with me. I think it might have been that open one, which would suggest 3. It didn't make it back from Limburg. In fact, it didn't make it into the second night. When I opened it, it got rinsed, emptied that first night in Limburg. When I came back, I bought another 2. And the other one is over there, still wrapped in the Highland Whiskey shop tissue that it came in. Knowing that I was going to open this and having plans for the other bottles that I have on the side, I went on and bought another one. So that would mean that either the one I've bought today is either the 4th or the 5th, something in that order. Regardless, either of those numbers makes it the most repurchased bottle in 2024. That's quite excessive. So let's remind myself, what is making me maniacal about this whiskey? And I think going from memory is of how different it is. I'm not suggesting for a second that you would be able to pick this out as anything other than maybe a good Scotch or a well-made malt whiskey. It's neither of those things, but you would be able to tell that there's something a wee bit different going on. So immediately that whole kind of feeling of fermentation, that estery, bready, doughy sweetness, almost like a Madeira caramel type sponge note. Quite a nice, mature, malty aspect. No way you would nose this and pick this out at 3 years old. No way. And I don't think that this is all about just a very, very good cask. I think it's clearly a good cask, but I think it's so much to do with just a fantastic distillation. So fruity, ripe fruits, bags of ripe fruits, bit of confectionery going on here as well, a bit of like powdered sherbet, bonbons, that kind of thing, toffee bonbons. Nice sweetness. .1% ABV. Cheers. Masquerades is something quite soft on the nose. You're in the realm of ripe fruit and desserts. Then it arrives and all the spice arrives. Warm spices, baking, kitchen spices. Just the best 3-year-old whiskey in memory for me. The most surprising 3-year-old whiskey, the most beguiling, seductive 3-year-old whiskey. Just beyond expectation, way beyond. I think what we're looking at here is something that's unlikely to be often repeated, but a distillery set up the way that circumstances, at the scale that they're at, the things that they're playing with and working with, they're going to have the capability to create these really quite super exciting, relatively small outturn, of course, interesting whiskies. Just when you think that there's so much whiskey out there, something like this comes along and makes you realize that the pursuit is endless. This is just fantastic. When I took this to Limburg and shared it with everyone, there was a risk that I had oversold it, that I was buzzing about a whiskey, that they were going to go, oh, okay, it's not bad, it's quite decent, nice bitterness on the finish, almost like a coffee note there. But no, everybody that tasted it was really surprised about how good it was. Have you tried it? Oh, up the English, says Dave Barnes. Love the Thompson Brothers Circumstance grain. Fantastic liquid. Okay, we've got somebody else in here loving it. And I'm sure, Dave, it's not just because it's an English spirit as well, right? Just ordered the Loch Lomond. There is still 38 left in stock, Aquavitae. Okay, so there is stock available. Good. So 38 out of 600. It's been around for a wee while now. I just feel like that whole series, I know that some of them have been very small outturns, but that whole series is just something that's ticking away, waiting to be discovered. Incredible liquid. Luna Aaron is saying, oh yes, that was a lovely bottle. You remember it, Luna, you shared it with me. And a grain of malt, you did as well. That Circumstance bottle is long gone now, or any left. I poured a wee sample of that bottle in Limburg, just rinsed it last night. I found some at retail still up at the Highland Whisky Shop in Inverness. I bought it online, and I bought one as recently, and I feel really bad saying this, but it's a measure of how much I love it. I bought one, I think I've maybe already admitted, I bought one as recently as today. From the Highland Whisky Shop. So I don't know if there's others out there. I think I paid 55, maybe 65, somewhere of that order. And I think it's absolutely worth it. That Circumstance really is amazing, says Alistair Gray. How can 3-year-old grain taste so good? Nearly finished my bottle with a backup in the cupboard. But remember, we're not talking about 3-year-old grain. This is all barley. We're talking about 85% malted barley, 15% unmalted barley. So they have to call it single grain under the SWA rules, interestingly. Maybe the English whiskey producers can do something a bit different, but I think they adhere to the SWA rules, which would render that with the 15% unmalted barley in the mix as a single grain. But as well as some other issues in production, potentially the way they're distilling it would also mean that they would have to call it a grain as well if it wasn't in a copper pot, for example. Jeff Whiskey saying, good evening, Aquavitae, and you wonderful barflies. Good to see you in, Jeff, my friend. Welcome, everyone. Cheers. And Harrow is saying, most purchased whiskey series for me is the 100 proof series. Bought several different ones. I don't doubt for a second. That's one of the ones I had to put to the side. The only reason for putting it to the side is twofold. I've spoken about it numerous times. There's just so much to talk about with that series. Where's the Value? I spoke about it as recently as last week. The price point is fantastic, £45, £48 thereabouts. It's wonderful stuff. But almost all of the releases so far have been sherry focused. I understand why. They've hit the sweet point of what the market wants, right? Price, ABV, everything, and that kind of dark sherry expression. I would like to see something a bit more this colour, a bit more golden come out in the 100 proof series signature vintage. If you could bring us some ex-bourbon, refill bourbon, first fill bourbon, whatever you've got in that area, I'm sure a lot of us would like to try some of that at 57.1% as well. My pal in Canada, Eric Cunliffe, good to see you, buddy. I hope Renee's well as well. Just popping out saying hello before class. Love to you all and looking forward to a dram on the replay. Springbank 30 on the bottling line is up there for best of 2024. So he was lucky. When he was working on the Springbank bottling line, they were bottling a 30-year-old Springbank. When I was working on the bottling line at Springbank, we were bottling a blend. It was a good blend, the Enigma 25. but quite a difference. Philip Wagner, good to see you, buddy. I've got some good news for you, Philip. Hang tight. I'm delinquent on a reply to your message, but we're in good shape. It's good news for you, buddy. He's saying, good evening, Barflies, with a bit of delay tonight. Good evening, Aquaviti. Circumstance sounds amazing. Have yet to taste it. Maybe you'll get a chance when you travel here a wee bit later in the year. I think it's you, Philip, isn't it? And Jed is saying, Thompson Brothers is what I've been buying the most this year. For me, Thompson Brothers and Ardnamurchan are miles ahead of the game this year. Glad you're loving it, Jed. You're in good company and drinking decent whiskey there too. Remember, there are loads of producers and distilleries out there for promiscuous whiskey heads such as us, but that's a good place to be. Hellswood is saying, no purchase bottles this year, been spreading the love. No, most purchase bottles been spreading the love. Good for you, Helen. Stay promiscuous, absolutely. And Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying the Secret Orkney is a lot better than the Secret Speyside, and both have more bourbon forward notes, Aquaviti. But for me, the Speyside, it did not work that great. He's talking about the 100 proof series, maybe. Danny Hebington is saying the vintage 10-year-old Mortlach from Signature recently released as a beautiful dram and in the glass tonight. I heard somebody raving very recently about the Kalila. I've got a Glen Talkers over there, a Linkwood, a Ben Nevis, trying to remember what else. Jimmy Legg is saying that was a very jealous face you were making concerning the Springer 10-year-old Aquaviti. Apologies. I have a jealous face. I don't often suffer from jealousy, but bottling Springbank 30 and getting to try, or maybe it wasn't that he was bottling the Springbank 30, just that he was able to taste the Springbank 30 and the bottling line. Cheers, Jimmy. Cheers, everyone. Cheers, Eric. A wee dram in from Jed as well, saying it's easier to pronounce the more you drink. Fair play to you, Jed. At least I've not managed to offend you in any way. Thank you very much for the dram. Wayne Van Tonder is good to see you, Wayne. That's the first time I've mentioned your name. I think it's the first time I've welcomed you here, but I'm welcoming you also to the Aquaviti Barflies. That's you helping to keep everything in the vPub advertisement free. Good to have you, Wayne. Nice to welcome you in. And Peter Lee's bought me a dram as well, saying, good evening, Roy. Currently sitting on Jimmy Jazz rear deck, waiting for the lobsters. All thanks to you, Roy. Please have a dram on us, and thank you all. Wow, my goodness. Now I need to pull a jealous face. I'm pretty jealous about that. Somewhere in the northeast of the US, sitting on a deck, probably in much better weather than blustery west of Scotland, waiting on your lobsters getting brought to you, probably with a dram in your hand as well. If I was in any way responsible for creating such a thing, I'm very, very pleased, but a wee bit jealous that I'm not part of it this time. I will be in future, Peter. I hope you and Denise enjoy it. Love and best wishes to you all over there. And Whiskey Veritas, good to see Oliver. He's saying Fragrant Drops, one of the most bought. Yeah, pretty new independent bottler recently that people seem to be getting really excited about. And Philip Wagner is saying, oh my, sounds incredible. You're the best. Thank you anyway. And this calls for one or the other dram in Glasgow. Good for you. Look forward to meeting you when you arrive here. Cheers. See, I'm just loving this stuff. I'm going to kind of move on because the next thing that I bring in is also could be talked about as one of my most purchased. I've bought 3 bottles. No. I bought 4 bottles of this in 2024. 2 have been gifted. So I feel a wee bit better about that. But they've been gifted to Whiskey Pals. I've got some Whiskey Pals that are kind of just on the periphery. They enjoy drinking whiskey. They've got a wee collection at home, but they only really get a buzz on and really get into it when they're potentially sitting there sipping it with me. And just the way it is, they've got other kind of pursuits, sports and hobbies and DIY projects and goodness knows what else is going on. But these ones I've been buying because I think this is an exciting landmark in whiskey. And I also think that it's a blueprint, a way, just a perfect scenario to launch a new whiskey. Not only have I bought multiple amounts of these, but I think this has got to go down as the way to launch a new whiskey. And I think in 2024, so far, it's easily the best new whiskey. Let's see if you know what I'm talking about. Had a great whiskey year so far, says Helen, but only going to get better come autumn. And Drum and Dart is saying, did you try autumn? Is that because you're planning trips? Drum and Dart is saying, did you try the Indri Drew? It's a banger. Yes, I did. I even tried it on a vPub. Drum and Dart, I think I'm going from memory here, so I might get it wrong. I think it was the Cask Strength vPub. There's a lovely creaminess and right at the back of my palate right now. And it's from this gorgeous circumstance. Greg's Whisky is saying, good to see you, Greg. Finally got my hands with an offer on one of the last bottles here of Clydeside Stobcross 2022. Even if I haven't tried it, but I thought of you and your good feedback on it more soon. This is interesting. And I'm going to speak specifically about Clydeside Distillery tonight, Greg. And specifically, we need to dwell, for your sake, on the Stobcross, because there needs to be a wee yellow triangle put next to Stobcross for me. And then I'll go on to talking about much more positive things about Clydeside Distillery this evening. Very soon, actually. Justin Wan is saying Ardnahoe, I'm guessing. Multi-Haggis Muncher Matthew saying Ardnahoe. Lachlan Mackenzie saying Ardnahoe. Must be talking about Ardnahoe, says Clitz. Oh, and Helen is saying, oh, yes, indeed. Isla via certain get-together in Glasgow at the end of September. Fantastic, of course. That's what you're looking forward to. Yes, I'm talking about Ardnahoe. Why is this difficult? Now, it's not easy to do what they did and build that distillery and make this whiskey and then wait 5 years and all of these things. And to make it this good, to make the liquid this good, none of that is easy. But I'm going to talk tonight about when the distillers and the team building, the infrastructure, and everything that's put in place in order to make the liquid do their job, and they make fantastic liquid. And it's passed over to a product development team who just volley it clean out the park. They just make such a backside of it that it just beggars belief. How could you have got this so wrong? How could you have made this so insipid or bizarrely priced or targeted at nobody in particular? It happens far more regularly than it should. That was not the case for Ardnahoe. They brought a whiskey out as an inaugural. They put inaugural on the label, 50% ABV, fully natural, told us on the label all the details that it was natural. They put in a nice kind of right down the middle of the road vatting, not leaning on sherry, not leaning on bourbon in any particular, just a nice balanced spirit. 70,000 bottles, we're told. That's anecdotal. I haven't been told that directly, but I believe it to be a considerable outturn. And 70 quid. Now, 70 quid is a bit salty, a wee bit pricey. I think for a 5-year-old whiskey, yes, we can argue about it. But it's also, in today's environment, very, very reasonable for an inaugural release. All it had to be was delicious. Based on very paltry amounts of samples that I had from Ardnahoe in advance to this release, I was super excited. It was probably one of the most anticipated releases. And I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. I bought it for myself. I bought a backup for myself immediately. I bought a bottle to gift to someone. I bought another bottle to gift to somebody else. It's not cheap. This is expensive whiskey. £70 is expensive. I know that it's 2024, and I know that £70 doesn't buy anything like what it used to buy 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. We understand all of these things. But in 2024, for an inaugural and whiskey that's this good, I forget how potently smoky this is. Surprised again. You know how sometimes I suffer from peat blight? I'll never pick up a glass of Ardnahoe and think, is this peaty? You get this lovely, warm, earthen puff of gorgeous aromatic smoke. It does not nose like 50% ABV. It does not nose like a 5-year-old. It's softer. Licorice and clove tonight. Wonderful. Very interesting to get that That flavour on the back of the circumstance I'm sipping, no doubt. Red licorice, clove, oily, leaning on industrial tonight even. Wee bit of funkiness almost. Never picked this up before. Fantastic, fantastic poise, balance, elegance even. There's no jagged elbows. There's nothing rough about this. There's nothing making you want to reach for a teaspoon of water to douse it at 50% either. It is sipping wonderfully well. The only criticism I've got with Ardnahoe is, where's the ex-bourbon stuff? That's what I was able to sample when I was there, and it was just magical. I know that the Fischel release that came out was ex-bourbon. I unfortunately never got a chance to get anywhere near that this year. I would love to try a release of Ardnahoe with an ex-bourbon maturation. Wee bit of refill, wee bit of first fill, the vatting of that order, something. Whatever you decide is working, Hunterling, let us know how you get on with it. But if you keep bringing products like this, I'm in the queue to pick up more. Really am. It's fantastic. It's easy to call this the best new whiskey of 2024. And if anybody is thinking about how we launch our whiskey in the future, you'd do worse than to take a wee leaf out of Ardnahoe's book. Fantastic job. Just the best. It's wonderful to witness that and be able to celebrate it. Any future releases, I'd like to see a tenner cheaper at least, please. It's your inaugural, we'll let you have 70 quid, but a wee bit cheaper would just mean that we're raving about you. David Hong has bought me a dram as well. David, you've already bought me a dram. My goodness, a second dram. Thank you very, very much. This dram is for Scotland, giving us the best of 2024 thus far. I think that when it comes to new whiskies, new releases, we've had a couple of other inaugurals this year, and they have been interesting. They have been good. Strathearn was very, very good. It wasn't truly, strictly speaking, an inaugural, but I understand that under the context and the circumstances, okay, they were calling it their inaugural. It was very, very good. I think it was even more expensive. It was 85 or something. Again, roughly about 5 years as well, the same age. But I think Ardnahoe really showed us just fantastic. I've yet to meet one person to come up and say, I didn't enjoy that Ardnahoe. Tim is saying, right there with you, Roy, for new distilleries, I want bourbon cask. You know, I understand why the inaugural might not be, Tim, but we really want to kind of connect with the distillery, right? 17 bottles of that Loch Lomond sold since Aquavite mentioned it tonight. You can almost call him an influencer. You know what? See, if I do influence you, and I do end up influencing you to buy bottles of cask strength 8-year-old whiskey at 59.1% ABV for £57, I'm happy to influence you. It's not influencing you for the sake of me earning from them. Nothing. It's just for you to be able to have a really interesting, really high quality, fantastic value whiskey in your hands. Jimmy Legacy saying, I didn't enjoy the Ardnahoe I had. Just kidding, I haven't had any. That'd be interesting, Jimmy. I think you might just enjoy this. And you're a hard man to please as well. All right. So we've already touched on this. I think it was Greg in Paris started to talk about another distillery that's very, very close to me in Glasgow here, Clydeside Distillery down just outside the city centre, almost in the city centre, let's be honest. Riverside. Their inaugural came out, I think, I'm not 100% sure when it came out, but it feels to me like it was, let's check. The pandemic made everything mash together, right? But I feel like it was pre-pandemic. I might be wrong there. The first beer reached the age of 3, but it would last until autumn 2021 before the inaugural release of a Clydeside. Okay, so it was during a pandemic or as we were coming out of it. But I remember buying it and sipping it in a hotel with a bunch of barflies who were visiting town. And we opened it up and we immediately realised that this Stobcross, I think, was the inaugural called Stobcross? Don't remember. I've got a Stobcross over there. It might just be out of reach. Try and reach it. Yeah, I didn't intend to share this one with you tonight. Looking at the fill level on this must be the original batch. This is their Stobcross. And I think this is maybe the original batch. Very, very raw. Very young, very sharp, very tart, bitter apple. Lots of new make elements still to it. I just felt like, oh dear, they've released it too young. They've released it too early. And I was reluctant to go back. But the thing is, because it's local in Glasgow, because they have a nice shop, a nice wee cafe, they do nice tours, it's a nice place to go, it's a nice place to visit. So you end up visiting, and you end up tasting what they're bottling from the distillery exclusive cask and things like that. And I end up, again, I could try and reach for that, but it's just a wee bit out of reach. Ugh. If anything smashes, it's because I'm stretching too far. So things like this. This is sealed. This hasn't been opened yet, but it's a distillery exclusive. I must have bought it in January last year, filled on 19th of January 2023. This is a dechar, rechar bottle from them. But I tasted this at the distillery and it was fantastic. I couldn't believe how good it was compared to the bottles that I'd been trying from them, in their official releases. Then, through the Glasgow Whisky Club, through visiting Clydeside, I discovered another absolute banger, and this is their 2023 limited edition, which I was really, really, really shocked at how good it was. To the point that when this featured in the Glasgow Whisky Club, everyone discounted it when they knew what they were about to sip. And when they sipped it, everybody's eyebrows were raised. They were not expecting this limited edition 2023, which is still available now, by the way, to be as good as it was. This was cask strength at 60-something percent ABV, 60.6% ABV. You would think it's really too hot to handle at that, especially being such a young malt, but it was fantastic. And suddenly I got excited about spirit from my local distillery again, the closest distillery to me, Clydeside in Glasgow. Good times. Then, this very week, they bring out this. This is their Napier. This is brand new. I nipped into the Good Spirits Company today to pick this up. This came home with me today. It's a wee bit more expensive than their standard core range Stobcross. This is coming in at £54 because this is exclusive full maturation in sherry casks. Do they tell us on here? They matured for over 6 years in Oloroso sherry casks. So we are getting some transparency here. 46% ABV. I do believe it tells us on the label that it's natural colour, non-chill filtered. Everything that we're asking for here. So I'm going to ask you, which should I open? Should I open the limited edition, which is still available for everyone, by the way, or the Napier? Whichever one you want me to uncork, that's going to be the next one. Because I have gone from a position of fair ambivalence with Clydeside Distillery to suddenly being quite excited. And there's a theme there, isn't there? There's a theme for over the last year and more about these types of whiskies. Whiskey 101 Nick is saying, I picked up the red wine bottle you're on at Clydeside whilst at Legfest, and I really enjoy it. That's good to hear. I didn't even know that they had a red wine. I wouldn't have been drawn to it, certainly. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Nick. It's fantastic. Pedro is saying peated Clydeside is just amazing. I was really impressed. Their spirit is going to age really well. I believe that that's the case. I think that is the case. The peated Clydeside, I'm under the impression it's peated cask. Is that right, Pedro? Hey, Inverurie Whisky Shop, Mike, you star, have gifted 10 Aquavitae memberships. Thank you very much for your generosity, buddy. That's fantastic of you. Cheers to you. Cheers, Mike. My pal Chris Everwind is here saying, ahoy malt mates, always great to welcome you in Everwind. One of the fellas that's been here since the very beginning. Dave Barnes as well saying Aquavitae limited edition. Okay, let's go with it. Peter Finnecane is saying Napier. It got to be the Napier, says Justin Wan. Okay. Should it actually be both? And I don't have my knife here tonight, so we're gonna have to test how good these are at opening without tools. There is a tear strip here. Hopefully it'll work. Oh, it seems like I've decided it's the Napier. I did that without even thinking. Here we go. Good. Open. Lovely dark colour, but not too dark. I mean, we're not in Coca-Cola territory here. Just a nice natural sherry colour. I think the best way to show you that would be to put it up against the bourbon cask there. This one is, well, I say bourbon. Actually, if I'm going to be accurate, it's Dichar Reacher. Quite a quiet wee pour here. I'm probably going to end up with about 8 drams in front of me tonight. So I'll keep the pours small and light. And let's see whether this is an uncorking. I can't, if it's one of the best of 2024, might make it over onto this shelf, but oh, okay. I always have to caveat these things. If you open and pour a neck pour, there's a very good chance that the whiskey is going to be a wee bit shy and a wee bit tight and a wee bit closed. Going to need to give it time. Going to need to roll it around a little bit. Be prepared to kind of put a wee splash of water in it. So anytime you see me uncorking on the vPub, know that it is a neck pour, and the caveat is always going to be I reserve the right to change my mind about the whiskey. And I'll try and update you when that happens. But I'll also think that you can get a good feel for a whiskey, even although it's just a wee bit closed still. And I think that's definitely true here. The way this noses to me, it says Oloroso sherry casks, but it noses a wee bit like sweet and caramel, maybe like American oak. So we might, rather than a European oak where you might get a dry spice, it's a wee bit like potentially American white oak sherry casks, which is absolutely fine. There's a kind of cola cube thing. Cherries, red cherry, maraschino cherry, sweet, very light on spice, very light on sherry spice. Okay, the Coca-Cola thing is like flat Coke, flat cherry Coke. Let's go with that. But it's really like that Vimto even, my goodness. So you get the vibe, you get the kind of what this is nosing like. 46% ABV. I'm not kind of compelled to reach for water or anything. Let's go in for a wee sip. Cheers. Clydeside, that's all I needed from you. Okay, I'm very relieved. I was careful before I talked about this, before I sipped it. One sip is enough. Let me ask you how much you need to pay for sherry matured whiskey today. Because see, until Signatory Vintage came along and gave us their 100 proof series for sub £50, 45, 46, 47 pounds, that order. It's very recent. That only happened at this winter time. For sherry matured whiskey, for sherry forward whiskey, we were a bit stuck. We were so relieved to have Thompson Brothers 6-year-old TBBSW blended whiskey, to have that lovely, 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 elegant, fabulous sherry bomb for £35, something of that order, because we suddenly had something that was a reasonable price to plug that sherry bomb gap. If anybody else was bringing out sherry bombs, they tended to be expensive. Now, Glenallachie have stepped up for us, adding more and more sherry into the mix and getting richer and richer and darker. but sherry tends to command a premium. The Staub Cross is £48 from Clydeside, and this Napier Oloroso sherry matured is £54. So even they're charging a premium. But the reason I was excited about this, and the reason I'm relieved to sit in front of you right now and have one sip of this and say, thank goodness. It's getting better fast, my goodness, is that we have a sherry matured, fully sherry matured whiskey, fully naturally presented at 54 quid. There's a theme, and it's been building for a long time. The distilleries that's going to look after our future is whiskey enthusiasts, whiskey drinkers that's looking for a natural, honest, integrity forward, flavor forward whiskey experience. It's not the incumbents that's going to look after us. It's new producers that are going to come after us, look after us. People that are bringing whiskey experiences through single malts for single malt's sake. Not setting up the distillery to sell bulk sales and sell to blends and things like that, but to sell single malts, high quality single malts that will get better year by year. Things that we will be in the future when these whiskies are mature, I think that we are going to be spoiled, especially if they can keep the price point at this. This Napier raised my interest because it's Oloroso sherry matured and 54 quid. That is something to celebrate. All it needed to be was good. It is very American oak, so it's much kind of sweet sherry style. I'm not suggesting a PX or syrupy sweet. I'm speaking about rather than the kind of the dry spice that you might get from European oak. It's very much more of kind of an American oak sherry style. Confectionery, lollies, cola cubes, boiled sweets, that kind of thing. The fruit is red. Everything about this is red. There is a bit of stone fruit in there, but it's sweet, like a sweet nectarine, a sweet peach. Soft, remarkably balanced. Wow. That's a very decent wee bottle of young whiskey. I say young. In the past, we've picked up Clydeside thinking we're drinking, and actually we have been drinking 3-year-old whiskey. We've actually got an age statement on here. It actually is 6-year age dated. 6 years old, 46%, fully matured in Oloroso, natural colour, non-chill filtered, £54. All it needed to be was tasty. So pleased. Now we've got options when it comes to sherry maturation. That's incredible. And we have to, therefore, I was reluctant to put this banner up until I'd actually experienced the thing. But based on the experience I've had even running up to that, based on the Dechar Rechar experience, that 2023 limited edition, which is not an expensive bottle, I was already excited and considering that this was one to keep an eye on. They've now got a sherry expression. Pedro's talking about peated expressions. I've not tried that yet. I'm excited because that's Glasgow whiskey. So we've got Glasgow, the 1770 Glasgow distillery brand out in the west of the city at Hillington. Fantastic. We're going to talk about them more tonight. And we've now got Clydeside, not bringing raw young whiskey anymore, but bringing crafted, mature product. This is good news. This is very good news. Mike Molasses, St. Jimmy Leg. He's saying, yes, I do buy from auctions, but I have those sent to a friend in London who then couriers them to me during his visits to the US. I did that with the first Aquavitae bottle too. Okay, so that's why I'm picking that up, because he mentioned Aquavitae in it. Yeah, there's a great auction tips and guides article on Dramface. You would have to search for it because it went out a few months back. But there's a lot of people out there in North America that's working with auctions here in the UK in order to get a hold of whiskies at much better prices, or to get a hold of whiskies that sell out or they can't otherwise get in their local area. If you consolidate the shipping and if you follow the guides and things in that Dramface article, it might help you pick up some interesting whiskies at decent prices. Certainly helps you circumvent when you're being fleeced through your local supply chain or local retailers. Dorpass Whiskey is saying, I applaud what Signatory has done. However, Signatory sherry casks have a very pronounced flavour profile that overpowers the spirit character, unfortunately. Do you feel you've picked out something specific in Signatory casks there, Tim? That's interesting in itself. Ian Bruce is saying, good morning, good afternoon, evening, Barflies and Roy. Terrific to welcome you in, Ian. I'm trying to remember where you are. Good morning would suggest potentially that you're south of the equator. I'm trying to remember, Ian. Regardless, it's nice to welcome you in. Dave Barnes is saying, Aquavitae, glad you never listened to me and opened the Napier. Going to go out and buy one tomorrow. Well, Dave, I have to say that it's a wee bit like what Ben was talking about with the Loch Lomond and things like that. One of the things that I will always, when you talk about things that motivate people to go and spend money, you realize that there are consequences to what you say and what you share. So the only thing you can do is be true and honest, as honest as you possibly can. Know that there is never, ever an agenda. I'm not getting any commission on it, anything. There's no kind of, my priority, my loyalty is to the people that finance me, which is you. So if a producer brings something along that is cheap and crap, I'll say so. If they bring something along that's expensive and crap, I'll say so. If it's expensive and great, I'll say so. I'll have to have that discussion tonight. And if it's cheap and great, I'll be very, very glad to say so. That's what I want to do. My loyalty is to with everyone in here. I think if you go out tomorrow, Dave, and buy this Napier, there's a modern whiskey lick to this. When I talk about modern whiskey, there is a estery. It's that ripe redness to it, ripe red fruit, but a kind of baked goods, sponge cake, Madeira loaf, malt loaf, that kind of lick to it too. A little bit of a patisserie counter about it, but it's excellent. I think that for £54, only 6 years old, I think you're going to be pretty surprised. It's not going to be particularly complex. Remember, it's going to be quite a, it's only the neck pour. It might give us up some detail. If I sit with this one night and play with water and things, we might get a bit more out of it, Dave. But I think that you're going to be quite pleased. Tell you what, buddy, between you and I, if you buy that Napier, and if you decide after the neck pour it's not for you, I'll buy the remainder off you. Hope you love it. Glasgow's doing something right, you're saying. It's also 1770. Can't go wrong. Glad you're enjoying the 1770. I'm going to spend a wee bit of time talking about them a wee bit earlier. And he is. Ian Bruce is in Perth, Australia, so I knew that he was somewhere in the upside down. Good morning, Ian. Nice to always welcome you, buddy. All right, let's move on. We've talked about something that we want to keep our eye on. I think Clydeside is climbing up where they faltered at the beginning, and we need to talk about the fact that they faltered. A little bit like their neighbours, Glasgow and Hillington. They faltered at the beginning, 50 cl bottles, £100 for an inaugural, a bit of a mess. But they've caught up, and my, how have they caught up? But if we spend a wee bit of time and a wee bit of a side topic here, and I worked out that there was half a dozen bottles where I could have talked about this same thing, playing with barley. Now, incidentally, just through pure accident tonight, I'm going to cover every single one of the Scottish whisky producing regions. It's not intentional, it just happens that we're going to have Lowland, Highland, we're going to have Campbelltown, we're going to have Speyside, we're going to have, what does that leave me with? Lowland, Highland, Speyside, Campbelltown, Islay, of course, I've had the Ardnahoe, so Islay as well. We've also had an English whisky. So we've got a decent spread, but that was by pure accident. I was pleased to see that there was some Speyside in the mix, because Speyside, given the fact that there are 50 plus distilleries in Speyside, it's the region that probably gets the least amount of airtime in the vPub, because it is just, there's so much dull there. It's crazy how much dull there is. Yes, we've got Craig Ellicky. Woo, fantastic. Yes, we've got Benriach. Fantastic. We've got others. But I'm struggling already, right? It's like Speyside should be much, much more advanced than it actually is. There should be enough whiskey there for them to be bringing stuff out that makes enthusiasts like us go nuts for it. But it hasn't been the case recently. However, I noticed that I had quite a few in the lineup. I'm not going to bring them all forward. I'm going to stretch. I've got the Balvenie 17-year-old Peat Week. It's appeared here. If you like a peaty whiskey and you want something a wee bit different, don't overpay. I know there are different age statements, different releases out there for Balvenie's Peat Week. I got mine at a very, very good price. I paid barely over £100 for my Peat Week 17-year-old, and it's wonderful. It's like no other peaty whiskey I have. It's lovely balance, very, very delicious, decadent peaty whiskey. That Balvenie 17 is wonderful. Love it. Great ABV, great presentation on it too. I've also got Benriach. One of the ones from 2024 was how much I loved that organic barley, and it is also one of the ones that I immediately bought a backup to, so a multiple purchase it could have counted for too. Interestingly, all of the I'm going to keep one of the Speyside ones for a wee bit later, I think. But interestingly, it also begins with a B. And this one I'm going to bring up and share with you. I've shared on a vPub already. The level's going to betray how much I'm enjoying this. This is another B distillery from Speyside. This was expensive, too expensive, but I'm hopeful that there's something in the future for us from this distillery, because this is Benriach's malting season. And I suspect that this is so under the radar that there's a good chance that we might be able to pick this up on offer. 48.9% ABV, but this malting season from Benriach, why is this so interesting? Well, because it was made with their in-house floor maltings, 100% their own floor maltings. I think this makes a difference. Why? Because I believe I can taste it. I'm tempted to just hit you with the memory tasting notes I have from this, but I've poured a teeny wee amount into a glass so that I can sip it with you. There's a slight vinyl chemically almost like a bookstore or some kind of dry wipe marker note to the nose. It's always there, but give it a minute and it subsides. And it moves into this kind of acidic and yet at the same time buttery olive oil, slightly outdoor and grassy, unique nose. There's a silage note definitely here. Lots of these notes that I'm sharing with you are going to sound off-putting, right? You know, silage and dry white marker, but they're all very, very interesting. a little soft bubblegum. Fizzy Lucozade orange, maybe not. And popcorn. Crazy, crazy unique whiskey. Oily. So oily. Acidic and bitter in the development. Some pepper and spice. 48.9% ABV. It's one of these kind of contrasting whiskies. The arrival and the finish are really quite separate. Fantastic to witness. You get this really quite unctuous, gloopy arrival. This oily texture. Suddenly you get this spike of spice, this dry, sharp acidity, and then it fades very, very quickly into this. You don't, it's almost like you might not be sipping Scotch. It is such a pleasant surprise. It's one of those whiskies that I've not been sharing this with anyone. This is me enjoying this, just getting through this. It's one of those whiskies that you sit with it, and if you're distracted doing other things, you're working away or you're watching something or listening to something, it's difficult to sip it and not be distracted by the whiskey because it's really quite unique. They are not messing around, I've suggested, playing with barley. When I'm talking about playing with barley, I'm talking about us playing with barley. Balvenie's peated that isn't normally peated. Benriach's organic. A different take on a Benriach product. I'm going to talk about another Speyside a wee bit earlier. And this Benriach, the barley that's 100% floor malted. This is a cracking whiskey. I think it's a bit pricey. If I was to look this up right now, I don't even know if it's still available for sale. I apologise that. And I know that there's been a couple of batches of it. I should tell you that this is the second edition. Yeah, this is expensive whiskey. It really is expensive. It's hovering around. Wow. £100. So it's pricey. So it's hard to recommend. It's not going to make it up here to the shelf based on that. That's just a bit too pricey. And I understand probably why it's that pricey, despite the fact there isn't an age statement on it. It does tell us that it was distilled in 2013 and bottled in 2022. So we know that it's potentially an 8 or a 9-year-old product. But £100 is pricey. So what they've had to do is they've had to kind of manage a very, very small batch through distillation right through bottling. So that's probably been where this kind of small batch cost comes into it. I get it. It doesn't make it onto the shelf for that. But something that is bizarrely younger does make it onto the shelf over my shoulder because it is just one of the most compelling whiskies that I've tried in 2024. One that I had to sit alone to understand just how good it was. I'm going to get to that in a second. Jonathan Mace has bought me a dram. Thank you very, very much. Jonathan, he said, great to catch the vPub live. I could get behind this Independence Day idea. Okay, so you're able to do it through the... can I just say, I'm very, very grateful to everybody that's clicking the likes when somebody buys a dram. That's really, really nice to see that. Glad to get behind it. So you're sitting at home on a wee bit of a holiday today, Jonathan. That's fantastic. I'm going to try and keep these glasses in the order of when I've poured them so I can keep some kind of track on what we've been sipping here. I'm going to pour... No, I'm not going to pour this. I'm not going to pour the one that I think is fantastic. I'm going to pour the one that isn't open yet. You want to do another wee uncorking. Playing with barley. Us playing with barley. We've all heard about what Golden Promise is, right? We know that Golden Promise is not potentially a heritage grain, but a grain that's fallen out of favour, a barley grain varietal that's fallen out of favour. It probably became prominent in the 60s and 70s. Obviously, Macallan built its entire reputation on the back of Golden Promise, but not only Macallan. I mean, forever we heard Glengoyne talking about Golden Promise quite regularly, and I think they may even still use a bit of Golden Promise even today. Golden Promise was just a fantastic two-row varietal that was loved for its texture and for its flavour in brewing and specifically distilling. The reason that the distilling industry moved away from Golden Promise is that they were chasing yield, of course, and they felt like they could get similar qualities from much higher yield barley strains such as Optic or Chalice or Decanter or these various much more modern barley varietals that you might be drinking today. But Golden Promise, where yield isn't important, is starting to see people playing with it once more. When I say when yield isn't important, we're talking more of the kind of more modern distillers that we have today. This is Golden Promise, made in 2018 at Ardnamurchan Distillery in the Highlands. This is a single cask, and you can see here it's cask. It's August 18, according to the AD number there. Cask 1062, and bottled for the George Hotel in Inverary. Now, I had bought this. I managed to pick up this through Royal Mail Whiskies. Went up to the George Hotel. Managed to sip a wee dram as we sat there and had some lunch at George Hotel. Getting to know the whiskey more and more. Sevi bought a bottle of it as well. Loved it. I loved it too. All about the texture on this thing. This is a sherry bomb because it is bottled. It's bottled one of 694 from a first fill Spanish oak ex Oloroso sherry, but they do tell us Golden Promise barley. Fantastic whiskey. I'm not going to pour one of these. Why? Because this is Cask 1062 0818. Well, this is 0818, and this is Cask 1060. This is a neighbouring cask. Golden Promise barley, ex Oloroso sherry butt, unpeated, Spanish oak, specifically telling us that it's not American oak, it's European oak. This is Spanish oak, which is fantastic to know the provenance of the wood. It's not guaranteed that it's going to make fantastic whiskey, but I knew I was going to cave and buy a bottle of this. And every time I had a sip of the George Hotel one, I knew that I was going to have one of these. This is actually bottled for Good Spirits Company in Glasgow. The George Hotel one, I think there might still be some stock floating around on that. There is definitely some stock floating around on the Good Spirits. I don't know how much. I really don't know how much. The good thing about talking about whiskies in 2024 is there's still a good chance that some of it might be available. Look at the colour. Now, that's a surprise because obviously it's Ardnamurchan. You can see there's a window in here that might give you some suggestion of the colour, but it's gorgeous to see that rich colour in the glass. Let's leave it in the glass for a wee minute. Couple of sherried ones on the go tonight, unpeated sherry. We've got the Clydeside Napier, and we've got this completely different animal, though at much higher ABV, 58.9. I think that's even higher than the George Hotel. 57.8, not much higher, similar. Golden Promise barley. What wonderful times that we live in. It might not be available to everybody everywhere all of the time, but there's a good chance with the amount of people that are being experimental and being courageous and going back into sub 400 litres per tonne of yield in order to go back decades to previous celebrated legendary barley strains and to bring it for today's drinker. That's got to be exciting times, surely. Jimmy's saying, how many bottles of Ardna do you have? A Graham Fraser amount? No, I don't think so. And almost all of the bottles of Ardna that I have, I'm looking at them now, there must be quite a few because it's 4 wide, so 3, it's at least a dozen, right? Yeah, it's quite a lot. are all open. Most of them are open. But I love this stuff. I love it. I'm buying it because I love it. Jimmy's saying a lot of E150 in that aquavitae. That's a wonderful thing because it's Ardnamurchan. We know that it is not. I think the Glen going 21, says Donner Pass Whiskey. Tim, he's saying I bought in 2017, dates back to the Golden Promise days. It could be, it could very much be. So 2017 back to, absolutely, I would think so. Ian Bruce is saying the Port Ellen, Brora and Rosebank now reopened. Are the distillers trying to reflect the older style and use the original grain variety? Not so much, Ian, really not so much. It remains to be seen what's going to happen there. And we're talking about 3 distilleries doing different things and 2 different producers with different goals. Rosebank is Ian MacLeod, Brora and Port Ellen is Diageo, of course. My worry is that even from the very first release that comes out of them, they're just going to be stupid and greedy on pricing. When do you get to sit alone, aquavitae? Well, it doesn't need to be just me. I'm talking about with the family or something like that. People who are not drinking whiskey with me, I should quantify it. Occasionally it does happen. Bruce Bernard is saying it can be bought for around $140, aquavitae. What can be bought for 140? I wonder. And a grain of malt is saying Schmugen, ask him. Oh, I was so desperate to get that 8-year-old Golden Promise on its way to you in September. Oh my goodness. James, if that could happen, oh my goodness. That was a release I was so excited to see. Schmogen, Swedish distillery, fantastic, artisanal, tiny, small batch. Really, really quite unique stuff. But that Askim release that they had at 8 years old was Golden Promise. I can't wait to try that. That would be fantastic. And Hoyt is saying, when did Glen going stop using Golden Promise? Well, we don't know. And I think there's a chance that they may even use a proportion of Golden Promise today. We believe that Macallan, even to today, even their new distillery at Macallan are still using a proportion up to a quarter. 25% of their distillation is from Golden Promise barley. Yield be damned. Zach Chaston is saying, I just opened a Balcones Golden Promise single cask. 4 years old and 65%. Absolute flavour bomb. Fantastic, Zach. Jimmy Legg is saying, take a photo of you sitting alone sometime. It would be worth something. And a grain of malt. James is saying, bringing it with me. Enjoyed some tonight along with the Smogan 12-year-old. Both solid drams. Okay, let's go into this Good Spirits Company, Golden Promise, Ardnamurchan, and play with some barley. Cheers, everyone. So where I was getting all the kind of sweetness from the Napier, much lower ABV as well. We've got lots of spice here. So it's bringing a sense of cinnamon and a kind of prickle to things. There's a menthol thing, like almost like a eucalyptus. Menthol, medicinal, boiled sweet. We have something in the UK called Loch. It's reminiscent of that. Wow. Honey, which is in the middle of Lockets. Hey, listen, if this is honey, it's not clear runny honey we're talking here. There's a nice, rich, dark honey to this. Fruit is a jamminess, plum, damson jam, dark jam. And a tannic kind of fruit tea thing. Yeah, like if you're ever occasionally, I did it this week, you'll have a late night fruit tea. I was feeling a wee bit under the weather, so a wee fruit tea before bed. It's kind of reminiscent of that. Everything is kind of burgundy in colour here, with a highlight of kind of bright yellow. Let's go with that. I can't, on the spice, I can't get past the cinnamon. A wee bit of ginger maybe, but that order. Cheers. So my memory from the George Hotel bottle is this kind of really big, gloopy, thick, oily arrival. One of my favourite things in whiskey is when we get that nice, heavy, viscous texture. First sip of this, it's there. It didn't impact me quite as much. But for any of you bourbon drinkers out there that drink the really high proof bourbon and get that kind of Kentucky hug sensation, that's what this is. 58 point something ABV, wasn't it? 58.9. Enough power there to give you that sensation, but it's just this gorgeous, thick, heavy, heady, warming spice. It hits you in the back of the palate and you feel it go down. Despite the fact that I've had 5 or 6 drams ahead of this thing tonight, 5 or 6 sips of small pours of drams. It's very, very expressive, communicative. It's not the type of whiskey that you're going to sit alone. It's going to distract everything that you're doing. Oh, wow. It's a sherry bomb that I might be reluctant to recommend towards somebody who loves a sherry bomb. So if you're talking to somebody who loves to sit down and sip a Glendronach 12, a Glendronach Allardyce or something, a nice, rich, sweet, easy Glengoyne, there's so much more going on here. This is unpeated, but the Ardnamurchan thing is coming through. The Ardnamurchan thing is there on the back end. It's not salty, but it's definitely a minerally element. It's not. So the Napier was quite a linear delivery. This is like peaks and troughs, flashes. I know it's 58.9, but I'm going to need a wee bit more in that glass. Just to see how we're getting on. I wonder how our parties are getting on in tonight's election. Jeez. I cannot fathom how amazing whiskey like this is going to be in the future. It's already this good. So that's an August 2018 cask, and we're sitting here in July of 2024. So it's not even a 6-year-old whiskey, and it's this good. Our future is fabulously bright as whiskey drinkers. We're in the doldrums right now because we're paying a lot of money. Listen, this is not an inexpensive bottle. This is a single cask Ardnahoe, so they're always around that £89–90 mark. It's not cheap. It's the way that Ardnamurchan do things. If they're doing a single cask, if they're going to set up their bottling line and everything just to do one single cask, and it's not going to be cheap to do it. But their regular core range releases, whether it's the standard AD, the cask strength, the mid-G, the sherry cask, whatever it is, they're all very, very fairly priced, and they're all wonderful whiskies. What's more wonderful is our privilege at getting to witness how amazing they're getting year after year after year. I'm tempted to pour one of the George Hotel ones and compare the two, but that's not what I'm after tonight. I'm excited about the fact that we are now in a privileged position, whether it's peated barley from a traditionally unpeated distillery, whether it's organic barley from a distillery that normally doesn't pay any, just normal barley through the process, whether it's Golden Promise instead of much more modern varietals, or whether it's fully exclusively in-house floor maltings over a mix of both or external contracting maltings. We have these abilities to go out and taste the whiskies and decide for ourselves whether or not these make a difference to production. In the past, we used to theorize on this based on old antique whiskies that we might be able to decide, oh, that was the floor maltings that made this. This Lagavulin is clearly from the floor malting vintage. This is an elevated experience because this was made using their in-house floor maltings, pre-1974 Lagavulin, for example. But it's all just kind of in the sky. It was just, nobody focused on that. Today, we are able to taste whiskies like that Benriach that is exclusively floor malted, just for flavour, just for fun. I appreciate that Benriach is a wee bit pricey, but that's a fantastic place to be in. And for Ardnamurchan to be not only willing to bring us things like this, but collaborate with some of our other favourite places in whisky, whether it's the George Hotel in Inverary or the Good Spirits Company in Glasgow, and allow them to do single casks, even when it's something special, like Golden Promise, is fantastic. And there's no difference in price. Peated, unpeated. Golden Promise, regular barley. Single cask is the cost of single cask. It's fantastic to see. Bud Jenkins, good to see you, Bud. UK election exit polls have the Labour Party winning big. Big changes ahead. I think it's inevitable. It's going to be interesting to see how much the polls and the predictions actually match up, Bud. We don't really talk about politics in here, do we? But we can allude to them, right? Whiskey with Molly saying exit poll of Labour, 170 seat majority, SNP only 10 seats, Reform 13, Labour 410, Tories 130. Oh my God. Lib Dem 61, but that's the exit poll. That's the exit poll. Dave Barnes is saying my vote today was for you to become Prime Minister. No brainer. I would hate it. I would absolutely hate it. No doubt it's a very, very specific type of individual that becomes a politician, a career politician, certainly. So here we go. Playing with Barley in 2024. Fantastic. Let's talk about price. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's talk about premium whiskies in 2024. Because we're not short of them, are we? There's literally billions of them. And in fact, even when the whiskey in the bottle is not actually premium, it tends to be dressed up. They put a bit of lipstick on it and seal it, put it in a nice box and push it forward and sell it as a premium whiskey. And it's happening too bloody often now. Even when the whiskey is good, even when it's rock solid good whiskey and people are ready to celebrate it, the temptation to dress it up and over egg it and over gild it is getting beyond a joke. This, at this point in this vPub tonight, is the less than 5% I'm going to spend dwelling on price. It is too much now. It's too much. I'm going to share with you a whiskey now that I love, that I bought. I'm very grateful to have bought it. But every time I take a glass of it to this day and it's not disappeared or dissipated for me, I have anxiety based on how much it cost me. That's not good enough. Whiskey should be for drinking. And I know that speaks much more to me and where I am in life and what I can actually afford as it does about the whiskey and the liquid and everything else. It's just kind of economics and the dynamics of wealth. However, all I can do is set things up from my perspective and talk about things from my perspective. And maybe through doing that, I tend to reach people that are on a similar level to me. Sometimes the price is too much. And even when the whiskey is fantastic, it's not enough for it to take away the anxiety of how much you paid to have that bottle. That's what I'm going to share with you tonight. Recently, we've seen it getting even worse. Tone deaf. Like there isn't whiskey just languishing on retail shelves and warehouses the planet over. Tone deaf. Here's a fantastic bottle of whiskey that I'm very glad to own in 2024. Bruichladdich 18-year-old. It was already mentioned in the stream a wee bit earlier tonight. Love this paper packaging. I love this wee caddy. This is the only packaging that exists in the vPub. Any tubes, boxes, or tissues are removed and thrown away. I like to see the liquid. I like to see the label and the glass inside. I've kept this on because I actually quite like it. I've come to love it even. Fantastic, different take on how to safely transport whiskey for, I imagine, very, very easy. I mean, that would just dissolve in the rain. It's just pulp, right? But it saves on breakages. It's very, very lightweight. You can keep the glass quite lightweight, ship that with it. I can see that it's an environmental win. And it is something a wee bit special. You do, when you give it to somebody, there is something a wee bit special about it. The secret to open this is any other glass top is to just push from the side with your thumb, and it opens quite easily. If you try and do the opposite by pulling it off on it, well, that was quite easy tonight, but often it can be a bit awkward. Here's the level check on this one. You have to spin it all the way around because it's the biggest label in whiskey, right? But there is a wee thing that can tell you. The level betrays how much I'm enjoying this. I've had it 2 or 3 months. Absolutely love the liquid, love the whiskey. It's not going to make a glug at all. Just going to pour a wee tiny amount. I paid £150 for this. It's too much. It's too much. But I'm talking to you now about how much I love the whiskey, right? Do I regret buying it? No. Do I reflect and say, well, actually, £150 was turned out not bad value because it's great whiskey? No. No, it's too much. Am I going to replace this when I finish it? No. No, because despite the fact that this is one of the best whiskies I've had in 2024, despite the fact that it's one of the best Bruichladdich I've ever had, I cannot, every glass of this is an anxiety. The more I enjoy it, the more I'm going to be anxious about how much I'm going to have to pay to replace it. Whiskey shouldn't be like that. It's not like I am short of fantastic, eye-rolling, dizzying, delicious, flavour-forward experiences at a half of this cost, a third of this cost, and even less. There simply isn't enough in this glass to justify that price point. If somebody doesn't care about money, if £150 is nothing to them, and they want to be guaranteed a fantastic whiskey, they're probably going to go out and buy this. That is the definition of high net worth luxury product placement marketing. That's what they're doing. That's who they're going after, potentially. My worry is all of the producers everywhere are doing the same thing, chasing that same pool of customers. How big is that pool? Maybe it's getting bigger. Maybe I'm very naive. But it doesn't matter because this is the vPub. And these are soon not going to be the whiskies that I talk about anymore. The nose is gorgeous, so elegant, so fruity, lovely stone fruits. Lovely maturity to it. Just a gorgeous, well-crafted whiskey. The problem is, the whiskey that Bruichladdich was making 18 years ago, and everyone that was around them as their peers making whiskey back then, that's not the days of making whiskey today. Even 8 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, that has changed significantly. When some maturity comes to those products, the competition is going to be off the charts. Incredible. Maybe by that time, Bruichladdich will have already gone ahead and claimed their spot in the luxury goods aisle. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I just don't see that aisle being big enough for all the brands that are chasing it. But honestly, good luck to them all. Bruichladdich brought out their Port Charlotte 18-year-old right after this. £175. Emboldened, Lefroy come out with their 18-year-old, double the price of the last time it was released. £180 for Lefroyg's 18-year-old. It's just, this tram has to stop. I'm off now. I stretched myself to £150, and I would like to sit in front of you today and say, I don't regret it. This is fabulous whiskey and I'm glad I've got it. But I have to admit to you that every time I pour a glass of this, I am super precious with it. I pour tiny little amounts. Even when I'm sharing it, I feel miserly because I know the anxiety of the cost. I know how much it's going to cost to replace. And that's not what whiskey is for me. And there are so many other whiskies out there that can give me a flavour experience that this is not a replace bottle for me unless I get it on offer. Cheers. This is a limited edition. It's not going to be around forever. Annual edition, perhaps. But it is what it is. It's very good whiskey. It's excellent whiskey. It's privileged whiskey to drink, honestly. Can I always have it around? Unlikely. Drama here from Justin 1, my pal in Hong Kong. Good to see Justin. Bruichladdich 18 for the win. For me, this is a good example of pricey whiskey delivering the quality promised. And we don't disagree. We absolutely don't disagree. My problem is that how many of us have the £150 to go out and replace it once we've finished enjoying a bottle, Justin? And I say that with no judgment. If people are out there and they want to go ahead and keep replacing their Bruichladdich 18 because they love it so much, but I have to contextualise it and say where I'm from. Stop pouring aqua vitae. It'll never last until September, says Jimmy. I need to do my best for it to last until September. Whiskey My Trails Tom, good to see you. Snagged that one for 149 US and a 750ml as well. It's heartbreaking for me, Tom, and it's exciting for you. So that's, what is that, £125? Quite a bit cheaper there, and you're getting a couple extra drams in a bottle too. Nice to have you in, Tom. Bruichladdich 18-year-old is one of only 3 bottles I've bought in 24. Paid $170 for it. Really like it, but won't replace it either. Aqua Vitae. Interesting, Rob. Nice to have you in. Danny Hebbington is saying, I bought my first bottle of Classic Laddie about a week ago and it's half done already. I looked past it for ages, but it's a great wee dram. I have to say, Danny, you're right. It's got very, very good recently. The Port Charlotte 10 is excellent as well. Bruichladdich, Classic Laddie is doing great things right now. They've got a good wee product going there. If you're loving the style, you clearly are. That's the one to go for. Even then, it's creeping up towards, in some retailers, 60 quid. Ian Bruce is saying Glenmurray, Springbank, and a couple of others won't be crafting for the whiskey elite. That's true, Ian. There are producers out there that shun it for the whiskey drinkers and the people that are always around. The trouble with the whiskey elite is that they chase fashion. Whiskey Radar is saying, have you tried Ralphie's 19-year-old bottling of Bruichladdich? It's similar, but quite a bit more complex than the already great 18 years old. Gorgeous. I have a bottle of it up here. Just out of shot over the back there. But I got to try it before it was bottled, Roland. So I know it's a cracker. That'll be a special occasion one to open. Jimmy Legg is saying, and I have to say that Ralphie bottle, I think, was 185, 190 or something, close to 200. But it is a single cask, higher ABV as well. Jimmy Legg is saying, now that's a vPub. What will be the quality in 2040? Oh, Jimmy, if I'm there, if I can make it to there, can you imagine? That would be something to celebrate. My whiskey of the year is easily the North of Scotland 44-year-old single grain some great man gave me. It's unbelievable. Just finishing it now. Thank you so much. I wonder who that was. I think I gave you a 41-year-old North of Scotland single grain, Jimmy Legg. I didn't dream that I would ever charge you 20 Canadian dollars for it. Thank you, sir, my friend. I'm glad you're enjoying that. A 1970 vintage from the dock. Cracker, isn't it? Sadly, compared to Bruichladdich, says Nora Pass Whiskey, who's bought me a dram as well, this is not out of line. Cask Exploration series are all single digit. 130, 160 beer barley, etc. 80 to 90 also for single digit oct. Yes. So those type of products from Bruichladdich have always been a wee bit pricey. I hear you. I really do hear you. Very generous dram, Tim. Thank you very much. And we are in agreement on the pricing from Brookladdy right now. A very generous dram from a pal in Hong Kong, Justin Wan, is saying, Ryan, fellow barflies, I'm going to sign off. Come on, you're only, 6 or 8 hours ahead of us? And get a bit of sleep and preparation for a big presentation in the afternoon, my afternoon. Wish me luck, although hopefully I won't need it. I'm going to raise this glass of Brookladdy, Justin, to you, my pal in Hong Kong, and say good luck with your presentation tomorrow and have a fantastic weekend, buddy. Thanks for joining us tonight. Sleep well. And Danny Hebington is saying, I paid 47 quid. Oh, I know you're not talking about Brookladdy now. And Inverurie is saying, discuss the price of 18-year-olds in our blether tonight. Still some great drams under £100, average hitting 100 to 150. Hard to justify more. I paid £65 today for Speyburn 18. Now, I'm not going to plug it. I don't have an affiliate link. I don't have a sponsorship or anything. I was browsing on other things. I stumbled upon £65 for Speyburn 18. I don't have the money right now, but I just said that's too crazy not to have it. And just pressed the button, paid for it. £65, 18-year-old Speyburn, fully natural, 46% ABV, unchill filtered, wonderful whiskey that we've talked about at length. It is out there, Mike. I absolutely agree with you. Let's finish up. Let's talk about some limited editions that are done well, a wee bit differently. Let's see. How to start. I only want to pour one more dram tonight and then we'll get into the quiz at the end. So I've got 3 limited editions that I want to share with you. And I'm only going to pour one of them. I've only got, well, no, I've got 2 clean glasses left, but one was an emergency backup, so I don't really want to use that. That's me used up my 8 drams now, isn't it? Okay. We've talked at length. The dram that I opened tonight with was a 1770 Glasgow distillery. Unique whiskey. We're still trying to tie this one down. Ethereal, floral, sweet vanilla confectionery. Really, really unique whiskey. Triple distilled Glasgow 1770. Bought this on the back of how much you guys have been talking about it to me. Glad that you're loving it. Looking forward to getting to know this a wee bit more. But this is the whiskey that I was already excited about Glasgow when this one came along, but this one just blew the doors off. One of the best single casks of 2024. One of the best markers of improvement, of future, a statement of what they want to achieve in the future. See, I'm already reaching for this. Is this going to be the one I pour? Just fantastic whiskey. This is Glasgow's Manthania Cask, which turned out to be, on this occasion, it's one of their small batch special releases, 59% volume, but it was also, in this occasion, a single cask. There was a wee bit of smoke on this too, and it turned out that it was an ex-peated Manthania cask. Fantastic stuff. Really, really good. Beyond surprising. Wonderful, wonderful whiskey. Ended up that everybody got their, everybody that was interested in it managed to hopefully get a hold of it, and we all talked about it loudly, and it sold out very, very quickly. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. £59. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Here's another producer doing limited editions the right way. This is Glen, Scotia's Campbelltown. This happens to be, incidentally, the unpeated sherry Fino finish from this year's Campbelltown Malts Festival, 9 years old. This is everywhere all the time. It's behind the bars. Potstill, Bonaccord. Glasgow Whisky Club has been sharing it. This has been poured all over the place. And every time I have a wee glass of it, I'm always like, ooh, wow. Forgotten how good this actually is. Campbelltown Malts Festival Edition. Cask strength as well. 56.2% ABV. Age statement, fully natural. Everything that we want. 60 quid. Plenty of it to go around. Nobody's going nuts for it. Nobody's beating each other up over it. There isn't a scrum for it. That's the way to do these special things. so that everybody everywhere can celebrate the Malts Festival at the same time. Scotia has the ability to do that, and I'm glad that they put it out at that price point and make it available everywhere. It's a way to do it, and it's something to be celebrated. And here is when I kind of go back on everything I've said, and when you have something that just hits the mark so profoundly that you overspend again, you're encouraged to overspend again. I opened tonight on a circumstance that I took to Limburg and shared, and it got rinsed very, very quickly. Here's another bottle that I opened and took to Limburg with me, and it almost got rinsed. This is Ballindalloch 2015 single cask sherry cask. You might remember the day, the moment I opened this on a vPub live in front of you. If you don't, that's okay. But I'm telling you that I remember. This was way beyond what I could reasonably have expected it to be. Now, people had got in touch with me in advance of how good this was. This was £89 I paid. And when I went back and bought a replacement bottle, I actually had to pay a wee bit more than that. But I left what was left in Limburg with a pal of mine. I hope he's enjoying it. And I had to buy a backup of it because it was so compelling. And again, when you take it into that company of all these whiskey drinkers, all these whiskey enthusiasts, the whiskey aficionados in Limburg, and they all enjoy it too, and you see their eyes open wide and pop and the smiles of pleasure, you know it's a good whiskey. Now, not all the releases from Ballindalloch are going to be single cask sherry cask, of course. All of it's going to be different. But I cannot talk about the first 6 months of 2024 and not talk about that 2015 vintage of Ballindalloch sherry cask. I'm actually going to pour the Glen Scotia tonight. I'm going to pour this because, why? Because the Manthony is sold out. The 2015 Ballindalloch is long sold out. But this wee Glen Scotia 9-year-old Festival Edition Fino sherry cask finish is something that we can still enjoy together. I've enjoyed a couple of Fino sherry whiskey releases in 2024. It's quite an interesting sherry in itself and an interesting cask to put Scotch in. Yep. There's a green note to it. Lovely green. Sweet, sugary white grapes. A wee bit floral. A wee bit resinous, a wee bit piney. Big bag of malt. Coastal, fresh, mineral. I've never detected much in the way of any kind of mineral element to that on the back of what I've just had. It is a lovely dry finish, very dry finish, crisp even, a brittle crispness to the finish. Lovely texture, a grittiness almost to it. Acidic. Floral, even a sense of light vanilla, creamy sugar mice. There is a sweet sugariness to it. It was a fruity sugar at the beginning. Now it's kind of gone for confectionery. So I went from, I think, fruity grapes to this is kind of like that sugary mice, that powdered sugar. Wee bit of spice, white pepper. Wow, quite a very, very interesting texture to it. 60 quid. This is my whiskey of the year so far, Aquavitae, says Ben Whiskey with Molly. You talking about the Glen Scotia? I think you probably are. When you say that, does it make that laddie 18 sound pretty bad, Aquavitae? I know what you're talking about. You're probably talking about the 90 quid paid for and then 7-year-old Ballindalloch. Then we talk about 18-year-old Brook Laddie for 150. The new producers, we have to hope that what they're saying is right, that they're expensive right now, especially for the special stuff, but as time goes on, that they will not continue to crank up the prices. That maturation isn't what they're trying to recover in costs right now. It remains to be seen whether that happens. Rinse 3 bottles of 1770 Manzanilla. Ben is saying had tried to keep one, but it was far too good not to drink. I don't know if you brought it to us, Ben. We brought it to you. I don't know how that worked, but I'm just so glad to have discovered that earlier this year. Drummond Dart is saying, 1770 told me on an email they will release a second batch of the Manzanilla early next year. The rumours, I've heard it from a few different places now. There is talk of another Manzanilla. I don't think it's a peated cask this time around. I don't even know if it's single cask, but they're bringing back the Manzanilla early next year. Looking forward to that. And Ben is saying, no, the Glasgow 1770 Manzanilla, fantastic. Zach Chaston is saying, I sourced a bottle of that Glen Scotia and shared it with my local whiskey club. It was a huge hit, such a good dram. Seb and Libby, says Ben, are my new best friends. Seb and Libby, that's the team out, the customer-facing team out at Glasgow Distillery he's talking about there. And Zach is obviously talking about the 9-year-old Fino Glen Scotia. So there we go. There's only one thing that I want to share with you before we roll into the quiz at the end at 2 hours and 6 minutes in. Of course, I do have a quiz at the end like I always do tonight. But there's one more I want to share with you. And I have to say, we have spent a bit of time tonight dwelling and talking about price, and that's just the way it is. And it's okay. I'll try and keep things positive. I'll try and keep the topics on the vPub interesting and mixed up and keep the guests coming and all of that, and try not to dwell too much on this kind of constant anxiety about price. But sometimes we just have to hit it head on. And if we don't talk about price, then who is? You know, there's too many people, fans of brands and people with more money and product developers who just think that there's loads of money out there and heads in the sand and all that. So we need to talk loudly when things are expensive. And one of the ways to speak loudly about expensive things is to celebrate when things are brought for reasonable prices. Here's something nice for you. If you've stayed here to the end, my emergency clean Glencairn is going to be used tonight. Apologies for the tissue noise that is about to ensue, but I picked this up this very afternoon. Didn't think I would get it for tonight's vPub. This is a brand new release from the Thompson brothers. And you need to be prepared for this. You need to avert your eyes, hide your eyes, because it's hideous. It really, really is. This is a brand new 8-year-old from the Thompson brothers. Now, this is a very parochial, tongue-in-cheek presentation here. Anybody that's familiar with supermarket own brand, white label products, generic products, value products will recognize this livery. Supermarket chain in the UK used this extensively for their own in-brand products. So something that was made really, really cheap, all the corners cut. That's what they made. Believe it or not, they actually made a whiskey. And they put out a whiskey looking a little bit reminiscent of this, a little bit similar to this. Or let's say this is reminiscent of that bottle of whiskey. Well, it went on to be one of the most kind of bashed, humiliated, hated whiskies bottles ever. In fact, if you look at Whiskey Base, the original Tesco bottling of generic Scotch blended whiskey, it's got one of the lowest scores on Whiskey Base. It's way down close to 30 points out of 100. Apparently really bad stuff. I haven't tried it, but I'm almost tempted to pick some up at auction or something just to try it to see how bad it was. So Thompson Brothers have decided, I think I'm interpreting the way that they think. I don't have any insight on this other than the fact that what they're doing is a very tongue-in-cheek take on that, to say that to make something inexpensive doesn't actually need to be crap too. Well, let's see what they've done here. They've put it out here at 8 years old, an 8-year age statement. An interesting ABV, 44.5% ABV, but it's non-chill filtered and it is natural colour. It's the Thompson Brothers product here. And we know what's in it. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, because I believe it's on the website when I tell you that 50% of the liquid in this bottle is Glen, one of the most celebrated Highland malt whiskies. The other 50% of this bottle is Clydeside, one of the most celebrated Highland whiskies. All I need is for this to be good whiskey. Blended malt. The punchline to all of this is the price. How much would you pay for 8-year-old Clydeside and Glen blended by the Thompson Brothers? They've put this out there in this livery to a price point. That's the reason for the ABV, is to hit that price point and to stand up against all of this cheap whiskey that's made to a price point, sacrificing everything, including flavour, texture, and experience. That's the spirit of it. It knows it's a wee bit young. It knows it's a wee bit fresh and youthful. Very bright. Clean and creamy. I've just uncorked this. It is a neck pour. Lots of sweet, ripe, fresh, crunchy orchard fruit. Sweet apple. Pear. Wee bit floral too. A wee bit of outdoor, fresh, clean air. Very light. Sweet white sugar. Very light vanillas and honey. Of course, I'm looking for a waxy element. I'm looking for a creaminess and oiliness. I'm looking for a farminess. I'm looking for anything that says Clydeside. It's the type of whiskey that I would just sit and nose and know immediately, this is a me kind of dram, my kind of whiskey. Okay, cheers. Oh, there is. Where are we for £35 today? You cannot pick up any 10-year-old or 12-year-old with a meaningful presentation under £40 today. I've spent 2 vPubs in June talking about entry-level whiskies at 10 and 12 years age statement. Round about this price point, £35 is exactly where it was. Couldn't get anything to jump beyond 43%. 40% was pretty much where it was across the board. Thompson Brothers have brought us something. On one sip, I know I could put it in a lineup of all of the whiskies I tried in June doing the top 10 bestsellers and then the top 10 community vPub top 10 bestseller edit at the end of June. And this would completely wipe the floor with them all. I think with very few exceptions. Why? It's nothing to do with age. This is 8 years old. Almost everything I talked about was 10 and 12 years old. It can't be about only ABV. 44.5 is a wee bit higher. Wee bit of hairspray, wee bit of perfume on the nose. It's about texture. It's about flavour. It's about quality. This is light. This is quite ethereal. This is quite transient whiskey. It's quite... It arrives and goes. It's just a kind of a... almost like a fizzy pop. Clean, balanced, light, sweet, easy. If we're going to make value whiskey, probably this is how to do it. Take 2 cracking malts, mix it together, put it out at a drinking ABV, don't chill filter it, keep it natural colour, and put it out at a price that puts 2 fingers up to everybody else, and put it in a bottle that you're only ever going to buy for drinking. This is not going to sit front and centre on your collection, right? Quite amazing. 50% Glen Ord, 50% Clydeside. £35. £35. Whiskey Rare are saying Aquaviti is this milk. How are Tesco's not suing them for this? Ben is saying. North Highland, any clue which one? I've shared it, Tim, thank you. And Whiskey Veritas, Oliver is saying, mine arrived today too, not open yet, interested to hear what you make of it. You've just heard what I make of it, buddy. Let me know what you make of it too. Wow, I want one, says Tim Dorpat's Whiskey. Tesco Basics. IRC, if I recall correctly, right? Danny is saying, it brings back memories of cheap tins of baked beans. For me, it was the tea bags. Really awful tea bags. Jimmy like saying, my brother has never put out a whiskey at this price. Oh, Thompson Brothers. My brother has never. Wanting Thompson Brothers Balblair, they are very nearby, maybe a bit late at Dunnage raiding. Listen, most of the things that I'm trying from Thompson Brothers, I say most, all, I've not tried anything that's made me go, oh, yet. It might happen, but I feel like it's unlikely. Must be good if that's just the neck pour, says Ian Bruce. It sounds like the best of the Infinity bottle. I would say it does have that sense of that feeling about it. It is light. The ABV, the 44.5% ABV, you have to bear in mind to the contrast of what I've been sipping up until tonight. Up until that one tonight. It does come across quite light. It is the neck pour. I suspect that a bit like their SRV 5, their 8-year-old, which is a blended malt as well, 40 quid of that order, similar price to this. Their 6-year-old, which doesn't taste like a 6-year-old, it tastes far, far more mature than that. TBBSW blended Scotch, 35, 37, 38 pounds. It's a similar product to that. So Thompson Brothers are able to bring us these premium Balblairs, these premium whatever single malt distillery they're doing. Dornoch, their own product, their own distilled product. I shared with you tonight the English whiskey, the Circumstance, an absolute belter of a whiskey. In fact, it made it over here onto the best of the year so far. That's great that they can bring us all of that, but the fact that they're able to bring us budget drinking whiskies too is just fabulous, just so encouraging. Hats off to them. They are at heart whiskey drinkers. and that's what their priorities are towards. All right. There we have it. This is the second last vPub of 2024. I will bring a vPub Loch in on Sunday night, all things going well with internet health and everything else. On Sunday night, I'm looking forward to hanging out with patrons on Sunday. Probably going to go out a wee bit earlier at 9 o'clock, if that's okay with everyone. But look, follow me inside Patreon if you're looking to work out where that's going to go out, what time that's going to go out, and I'll share it with you over the next day or two. But that's going out on Sunday night. Then the last vPub of the year before the summer break is next week, and I'll be disappearing for 5 or 6 weeks. Sorry, I always said I'd do it. I've been doing it for every summer ever since, and it just does the best thing to reset. The reason that the vPub is still going after 7 odd years is that I've been able to take a summer break. So I'm looking forward to that too, taking a wee bit of a back seat, step away from whiskey for a while, and just maybe getting some sunshine too. But next week's vPub will be hopefully me getting together with the Bottle Chasers for a wee bit of a game show type event, a wee bit of a party, a wee bit of a fun, and a wee bit of switch up from a lot of this kind of solo vPubs that I've been having with you recently. Looking forward to that. I really am. I've got a couple of wee drams left. I've got some of this left. I've got some of that left. And I've got some of this. And I can sip that alongside what's left of the Thompson brothers in the glass here as we go on to the quiz at the end. Brian Cabalis is in. Good to see you, Brian. He's saying, how's the blood tub cooking? I'm thinking I was quite enjoying it, but I tried it on a couple of folk that dropped by and they said it needs a bit more time. So I'm going to need to work on it a wee bit more. Roddy and I are talking about how we can go up against each other with that whole thing. Let's see what happens with it, Brian. Graham Fraser is saying it was an amazing experience with Thompson Brothers and Dornoch last week, Roy. Fantastic. I'm glad you had a good time. There's no way it could be anything other than that up there. What they make up on distillery scale, sorry, what they don't have on, let's say, scale or square footage of distillery, they make up on experience, Graham. The hotel is fantastic as well. Going to Spain, says Jimmy Legg. I am, Jimmy, as I do every year. I'm very much looking forward to it. I could do with a wee bit of vitamin D right now. There's not a lot of it right around here. Ian Bruce is saying, when are the Dramface and you planning to visit Gus in Australia? Gus in Australia. Gus is located in Australia. There's no plans. I think it's more likely to happen the opposite way around, if I'm honest, Ian. You'll need to tag along in his luggage. Donald Pass Whiskey is saying, this is the best thing I could be doing today with 40 degrees heat outside. 40 degrees, wow. And Mikey Hay is in for the quiz at the end. Always good to see you, Mikey. You tend to pop your head above the parapet. The quiz at the end. Brilliant to have you. We drama in from Jerry. Jerry Miller is saying, likely missing next week. So here's a dram on me and enjoy the break, Roy. Thank you very, very much for your generous dram, Jerry Miller. It'd be wonderful to catch up with you. Obviously, it can't be next week, but maybe after the summer, my friend. Cheers to you. Thank you for your generosity. And my pal, Graham Young in Canada. Cheers to a great summer. Barflies rule. Graham, maybe I'll have you back next week before we all disappear. Thank you, buddy. Cheers to you. All right, let's get the quiz underway. Always multiple choice. You know the rules by now. You know the drill, don't you? I predict that after last week's only 1 or 2 people managing a 10 out of 10, I predict that there may be 1 or 2 more of you are able to squeak a 10 out of a 10 tonight. It's just my gut feel right now. It's often very, very wrong. Remember, you only need to share your score if you want to. It's multiple choice. You're only playing against yourself. If you're struggling, if you want to guess, go ahead. But if you feel like you want to lean on the massive pool of knowledge in the lounge, you can do that and lean against the chat. It's always here for just good fun. All right. Good luck, everyone. Question 1. Which of these distilleries feature in the top 10 list of the Dramface Top 40? Now, I think we're over 1,600 people have participated in the Dramface Top 40 already. It's constantly live. You can keep it up to date. So if you change your mind about what your top 10 is, you can go back in and change your mind over time. And we'll occasionally take snapshots from it and publish it on Dramface. Started out on this channel. It moved across to Dramface. They're managing it now. The top 10 of that top 40, I'm looking for a distillery in this list that doesn't appear there. A, Glenallachie is not in the top 10. B, Bunnahabhain is not in the top 10. Or C, Arran, specifically Lochranza, of course, is not in the top 10. So it's a top 40 list, of course. When it was here, when I did it in the vPub, it very much was a top 10, but it moved over to Dramface. We decided to open it up and make it much bigger. It's a top 40. But, of course, I'm specifically focusing on the top 10 here, and I want you to find the distillery that is, that features in the top 10. Am I saying not? Sorry, yes, I'm looking for the one that features in the top 10. Apologies. B and C probably are both in the top 40. It says DVDW. I don't know who that is. It's not David Owen, is it? With a different name. Whiskey with Molly saying B and C then. And Jonas Lind is in. Good to see Jonas. He's saying B for sure. Oliver is saying B and C. Oh, wow. Mike Molasses, B. Everybody's pretty sure that Bunnahabhain's in the top 10. Boomer is in. Good to see you. James Costigan. Wonder if that's the first time I've welcomed you, James. Good to have you. Lachlan McKenzie saying B and C. Misunderstood the question. B and C, says Tom Whiskey Wine Trails. I think that might have been my fault, the way I described it or the way I was talking about it. I'm looking for which of these distilleries is in the top 10. And you've already mostly clocked it. Glenallachie is not, but Bunnahabhain and Arran both are. Bunnahabhain is constantly duking it out for second place behind Springbank alongside Brookladdie, and Arran is very, very close behind, usually in about 4th, 5th position. Question 2. 100 proof UK or imperial proof is the equivalent of what in ABV? DVDW saying, here I am indeed logged in under a different account today using Chrome instead of Firefox as the chat failed. Amazing I was able to place you from the name. That's brilliant. Good to see you, David. Okay, what is the ABV equivalent of 100 proof UK Imperial? A, 50% ABV. B, 57.1% ABV. C, 60% ABV. 100 UK or imperial proof is the equivalent of what in alcohol by volume? A wee look at the Benriach, says Graham Young. That's not cheating. It's knowledge. Just reminding yourself of that knowledge, aren't you? Vasil is in. Good to see you, Vasil. Mark Chapman is here. Fantastic, Mark. Good to welcome you. Big Ed. Glen FC. Klaus. I wonder if that's the first time I've welcomed you, Glen. Good to have you in, Klaus. Set it alight, says Jimmy Legg. Port Askig 100 proof in the glass. Petehead, that's a handy one to have. Okay. You know then that 50% ABV is 100 proof in the US. 57.1% ABV is 100 UK imperial proof. It's roughly, more or less, multiplied by 1.75. So if you take the ABV, multiply by 1.75, you get the proof. But it's kind of an old thing now. Just 100 proof. Signatory have done it recently with their release, 57.1 everything. The old Benriach, various other releases as well. Glenfarclas 105, interestingly, 105 is a 60% proof. Sorry, 60% ABV for 105 UK or imperial proof. Question 3. Due to occupying the same site, which of these pairs are considered sister distilleries? I'm going to give you 3 pairs. I need you to spot the 2 that are occupying the same site. A, Linkwood and Inchgour. B, Glenspey and Strathmill. Or C, Glenlossie and Manachmore. Bruce has been quite honest in thanking the chat to say 2 out of 2. Thanks, chat. Jimmy Legg is hungry for pears. So it doesn't matter what the spelling is. I'm a wee bit hungry. I could do with a wee midnight snack before bed, Jimmy, tonight. Although I doubt it'll be pears, not least because we don't have any in. But, you know, I've got pairs of other things. Pairs of slices of bread. That'll do. Loch do alert, Whiskey Radar Roland. I like it. I like it. Okay, what are sister distilleries? A. Linkwood and Inchgour, B. Glen Spain, Strathmill, C. Glenlossie and Manachmore. Absolutely nailed it. Of course, it's Glenlossie and Manachmore. I've got a wee picture here, a wee Google Maps picture. I don't know if you can tell, but on the left there, down at the bottom side of that site is Glenlossie Distillery, and on the right-hand side, out east, slightly bit more east, it's probably about a 5-minute walk between the two, I think, is Manachmore Distillery. That's what I was after. C, you get it absolutely right, as we go into question 4. Which of these releases features a Palo Cortado cask theme? So either fully matured, finished, or otherwise vatted with Palo Cortado. One of these is Palo Cortado themed. A. Glen Scotia's Icons of Campbelltown, edition number 1. B. Deanston's Chronicles, edition number 2. Or C. Aaron's Signature Series, edition number 2. Ooh, a toast with maple spread. Everyone's going to start to get a wee bit hungry. Jonas is saying, thank you, Charles McLean, and you writing for this one. Ooh, you've been swatting up with some Charlie. There's worse places to do that, Jonas. We're both fans. Which of these has a Palo Cortado theme? Rob Smith is screaming, help. Ben Whiskey with Molly saying, cracking bottle that. He's already answered. Oliver is saying, it's a 12-year-old. Yes, you are correct, Oliver. And suddenly, all the A's. It was indeed. Jonas is saying a long shot. Well, no, you're in good company, Jonas. It is the Mermaid from Glen Scotia, which was the Icons of Campbelltown edition number 1. Palo Cortado finish. James Costigan is admitting he went with the crowd on that one. No problem. That's exactly what they're here to do. If you are following the crowd, watch out for the banana skins. Here we go into the picture question here. Quite a lot of signage around, but hopefully nothing to give it away. We're just going to ask you, where is this? Are we looking at a distillery in A, the Highlands, B, Speyside, or C, Isla? We credit to Graham Fraser for this picture. It's been a few weeks since I've used a Graham Fraser picture. Actually, Graham, the email that you sent me through with your latest pictures on it, some of them had the camera grid on it, and they were also kind of mixed up. So I had to go off and do a wee bit of research to work out which was which for the ones I couldn't guess. Sugar Kitty St. Alan, a whiskey friend, just talking to all of us in the US about that Glen Scotia bottle. The Mermaid he's talking about there. Jimmy's on a 4 out of 4. Brian Cabayas. Pedro Minto, most of you are on 4 out of 4. Amazing. Boomer is on 4 out of 10. 4 out of 4 already. Fantastic. Good to see you in, Boomer. Rob Smith is saying my backyard. And Graham Young is saying you got this, Gino. What did Gino say? Do I? He's saying. Okay. Are we looking at the Highlands? Are we looking at Speyside? Or are we looking at Isla? I can tell you we are looking at Glenallachie, which means that we are in Speyside. It's a tricky one. Graham's recent images that he's submitted, a few of them are quite tricky. I found them certainly quite tricky. I guessed this one, but I wasn't confident. I was also kind of wondering if it could be an odd angle of like Colilla, Clydeside, Manachmore type places as well, with lots of glass. But no, eventually I decided to go with an angle. I'd never seen a Glenallachie before I got this one right. I'm glad that most of you did too. but it is a kind of strange angle. You can see the still room there. You see the stills in the background. Question 6. Adelphi is a celebrated independent bottler, but it was also once upon a time a distillery. Where was that distillery located? Was Adelphi Distillery located in A, Edinburgh, B, Glasgow, C, Aberdeen? A, Edinburgh, B, Glasgow, C, Aberdeen. So far, so good, says Tom. Whiskey Wine Trails. Wheels coming off shortly. Pedro is in saying B. He reckons we're in Glasgow for Adelphi. Rob Smith is thanking the crowd. Good for you, Rob. David is celebrating a 5 out of 5 as well. 5 out of 5. If you get 5 already, that's the pass mark. Good stuff. Adelphi Distillery, where was it? Edinburgh, Glasgow, or Aberdeen? Mikey Hayes saying B, because Glasgow's great. I agree with you, Mikey. I do. Despite the fact you're living down south these days in London, right? Okay. Adelphi Distillery was located in an area of the Gorbals in Glasgow. Yes, Adelphi Distillery. 1907, it was lost. It's now the site of, I think it's a mosque, actually, these days, in the south side of the river. Question 7. Which of these producers release the Legacy series? Easy. Who releases the Legacy series? A, Tomatin. B, Torvik. C, Ardmore. Mikey is suggesting this is an easy banana. Brian is changing his mind. Wonder if there's a bit of a lag tonight. James Costigan is saying I was going to guess Glengoyne, but it's not an answer. Yes, James, there is a series, the Legacy series from Glengoyne, but it's not an option here tonight. But spot on, you're right. The Glengoyne also have the Legacy. Oh, wow. It's the last that Thompson Brothers one. Creamy, sugary. Dorpass Whiskey Tim is saying B, as A and B are not a series. Spot on. Tomatin Legacy is a product. Ardmore Legacy is a product. But Torvik has a series of products called the Legacy series. Alt Glen is already out, and Knocknamoynia is the most recent one. We've also got a cask strength version of Alt Glen, or Alt Glen. But B for Torvik is what we were after there. Hope you all got that one. Only a couple of more to go. Which of these distilleries features a visitor centre? Very straightforward. Which of these does feature a visitor centre? A, Scapa. B, Loch Lomond. C, Royal Bracla. 3 options. All of them you can go and look at. Only one of them you can actually go inside and visit. Is that A, Scapa, B, Loch Lomond, or C, Royal Bracla? Terrific. How are we going on for time? 2:38. It's typical. Typical these days. It's been a long time since the vPub ever managed its 2-hour mark, right? I should maybe target that for when I come back. Maybe that's something to look at for after summer. Everybody's going in a very specific direction with this one. I suspect that this is going to be a big, big, big 10 out of 10 night tonight. Brian is saying there's a lag on my side. I wonder if it's from my side, Brian. I did mention there were some internet issues tonight, so it could be. Anyway, Peter is saying he still has to visit this one. I can tell you that Royal Bracla does not have a visitor centre. I can tell you that Loch Lomond, unfortunately, does not have a visitor centre. Scapa has just, in the last year to 18 months, invested a lot of money in a big plush visitor centre that I would love to go up and see. Maybe I need to make an effort to get up to Ardnahoe. That's twice I've said that tonight. Should just get it done at some point in the future. Lots of 8 out of 8s tonight. Very impressive, fantastic stuff. I suspect there will be good scores tonight. Question 9 is not an asshat tonight. I've had double asshats at the end for the last few weeks, but tonight is fairly straightforward. How many Scotch malt distilleries currently own a royal warrant? How many have an official, valid, current royal warrant? A, just the 2. B, currently 3. Or C, actually 4. How many Scotch malt distilleries own a valid, current, legitimate royal warrant in 2024? A, just the 2. B, currently 3. C, actually 4. Oof. Peter is saying, let's travel together then. I like the idea, Frank. I love it. Sugar Kitty saying, would well have been to Loch Lomond if they did. Everyone wanted to do that on my Scotland trip. I think it's difficult for them to, I think there's some issues with taking public people onto that site in any kind of number. Mike Molasses is saying, I can think of 2, therefore it must be more than that. Ooh, right at the end, out comes the banana skin. Out comes the rug to pull out from under everyone's feet. Mark Chapman says A, Royal Lochnagar has a valid royal warrant. Lefroig has a valid royal warrant. That's it. Just 2 Scotch malt distilleries as we sit in 2024 have royal warrants. There are brands out there that have royal warrants, such as Johnny Walker, as we mentioned last week, but the only 2 malt distilleries to own a royal warrant for Scotch malt distilling is, Royal Lochnagar and Lefroig. Incredible. Great answers as B does not include A and does not include B and A. Okay. There is an asshat at the end. Is there anybody managed to hold on? Pedro has hung on. I think Mark Chapman had a chance as well. He got that one right. I don't know how he's scoring otherwise. It's got to be somebody else. Everybody was doing so well. 100 years of watching Roy's quizzes and 10 out of 10 for me. Mikey, how are you getting on right now, though? How are you doing tonight? Are you still struggling for that tonight? I'm so sorry if that's the case. I think Graham Fraser has managed a 9 out of 9, so we've got 2 in for it. Amazing. That could have just as well been an asshat at the end. What a question to take it away from everyone. Very poorly, says Mark Chapman. He got that one right, but he's been doing very poorly otherwise. So that means it's between Pedro and Graham Fraser. Best I can do, says Boomer, is 8 out of 10. Guess we all learned something today. As Zach Chaston is saying, Ian Bruce is saying, Roy, are you going to let the 1% Club use these questions? Okay, here we go for the asshat at the end. How many Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter S? Hopefully you've picked up that I like to kind of do these letter things now and again. I'm not suggesting that you go off and study it, but how many Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter S? Springbank, for example. About the same as the number of A, recognised Scotch whisky regions. B, about the same as the number of islands producing Scotch whisky. That is Scotch whisky producing islands. Or C, about the same as the number of stars on Cadenhead's famous Scotch blend. Raoul G is saying, does Bracla not have a royal warrant? Royal Bracla has had a royal warrant in the past, Raoul. It definitely has. Very specifically, I was after valid contemporary royal warrants today. Too Slow Rob is in. Good to see you, buddy. But he's not happy. He's saying no. Mikey Hayes saying, wow, number of Islay distilleries wasn't an answer. Yes, I like to switch it up, Mikey. You really do pay attention to the quiz, buddy. Huge hugs to you, man. Fantastic. How many Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter S? About the same as the number of recognised Scotch whisky regions, islands producing Scotch whisky, or stars on Cadenhead's famous Scotch blend. So Bracla is now just Bracla without the royal bit. Sounds really off. No, I don't think they need to, once they're named Royal Bracla, they don't need to change their name in order to, but the royal warrant needs to be reinstated. So they're not forced to change their name. They're not forced to change their branding. Once royal, always royal. I believe that that's the way it works, at least. Then it looks like a new name, Gerald Borkham, in suggesting that it's B, the number of islands produced Scotch whisky. Whisky with Molly saying C, the stars in Cadenhead's famous Scotch whisky blend. I wonder how many of you have the Malt Whisky Yearbook alongside you. Listen, I use a few resources to make up the quizzes. I use the internet, I use Google, and I use my own head and whimsy and things that's rattling around in there. But I use Charlie McLean's Wikipedia often. I also use his miscellany as well. But the Bible for the quiz at the end is the Scotch Malt Whisky Yearbook. And I can tell you that Scotch whisky distilleries beginning with S are Scapa, Speyburn, Speyside, Springbank, Strathearn, Strathmill, Strathisla. 7. There are 5 recognised Scotch whisky regions. The Islands is part of the Highlands. It's not a 6th, although we like to separate it out occasionally. Islands producing Scotch whisky. Benbecula brings that up to 10 islands now responsible for making Scotch single malt whisky. Stars on Cadenhead's famous Scotch whisky blend is, of course, 7 stars is their famous blend. That was the ass hat at the end. How did Graham Fraser get on? How did Pedro get on? Have they managed to hold it together for a 10 out of 10 at the end? I hope that that's the case. 9 out of 10 for Jimmy Legg, 7 for Gino, 7 for Whisky with Molly. Peter Box is on a 9. Boomer on a 7 out of 10. Dang, Boomer, that's a good score. Jerry Miller saying 9 out of 10 a score with a royal mistake. 10 out of 10 for Graham. Lucky tonight on the train heading home. Graham, you're not lucky. There's no luck. That's just who you are, where you are. It's much more than luck, buddy. Congratulations, Graham Fraser. Now, of course, it was a Graham Fraser picture tonight, but he's still valid to play along with everybody. Rob Smith is saying 9.9 out of 10. I would suggest, Rob, that you take that as a 10 out of 10 tonight, buddy. See how Pedro gets on. So many 9s tonight. Graham Young, Brian Cabalius, Mikey Hay. Oh, Mikey, one away again. You'll get there. You'll get there, buddy. You will. Whiskey Wine Trails Tom on a 9. Philip Wagner. Dave the Brave. Dave the Brave. That looks like a new name. Fantastic. Jumped. Whiskey Raider 8, along with Rob, Too Slow on 8. Pedro saying 10 out of 10. It's been a long time. Pedro has also scored a 10 out of 10. Listen, if there's any Portuguese speakers out there, Pedro's got a fantastic project going on. Pedro, if you want to drop in a link, by all means, you'd be welcome to do that there. It's Whisky Academia or something, Portuguese speaking in Brazil, building up content out there. Fantastic. Graham Fraser and Pedro. Whisky with Molly Bennett saying, where's Wook? We don't know. Hopefully he's just on holiday or something. Maybe he's had what he needs from what we do here. And he's moved on. He's quite happy doing something. That's okay. Just forgot to like that. Hellswood is saying a 9 out of 10 for the second week in a row. See you Sunday from Keswick. Oh, My goodness, you're away up in the lakes again. Fantastic. I hope you enjoy it, you and Andy. In Whiskey Veritas, Oliver is saying, what about Sarah Vord? Well, Sarah Vord isn't actually making any whiskey, is it? Or is it? We wait. He's talking about a distillery up in Shetland. Whiskey Wine Trails. Tom, sorry, Tom, that just jumped there. I'm going to struggle to get your comment. Scroll back. Where are you? Too slow, saying thank you, everyone. Jimmy Legacy, got to make Angie a cuppa. See most of you Sunday, and you too, Aquavite. I'm looking forward to it, and then I'll be able to share details with you of the Loch Lomond release, and just kind of how the shape up of things are going to be over summer and back. But it's just going to be a wee relaxed wind down before we roll into the summer break. Looking forward to hanging out with all my patrons. Peter is saying, with that, I'm calling it a day and hit the sack. Thanks always, A, to the internet, and B, to the Aquavite for organising all of you. See you next time on Sunday. Yes, my internet did help hold up. There's a lot to be thankful for. Good night, all. It says Whiskey with Molly. Have a great weekend. Roy says, Gino, and Ian Bruce is saying, Wook, the visiting Forest Moon event. Wook is visiting the Forest Moon event. Right enough. Graham Fraser is saying, thanks for tonight, Roy. Thank you to all of you. Thank you. Enjoyed a lot of whiskies throughout the year. I think the future is very, very bright for us all. I don't know what to do. I feel like blending all of these and taking it upstairs and having myself some maple syrup on toast or something. But no, I'll leave them here. I'll raise this wee glass and thank you all. This is actually one of the first ones that I poured tonight, which is, in fact, it's not the Circumstance. No, this is the Loch Lomond. As soon as you smell it, it's the Loch Lomond. I'll raise it to all of you and say thank you for joining me on another Thursday night. Interesting to see how the elections have done, right? I'm looking forward to hanging out with you next week with the Bottle Chasers. But until then, I'll remind you all that you're very dearly loved. And I look forward to hanging out with you for the last vPub before the summer break next week. Till then, Sláinte mhath, barflies. Thank you.